It is said that by the time students graduate from the Kimberly Academy of Magic, 20% of them have been consumed by magic. This is why Oliver was walking through the corridors feeling anxious. He was stopped by a jackflower, which asked him why he was so worried, suggesting he relax a little, while assuring him that a dreadful future awaited him anyway. Oliver thought to himself that this must be something they tell all the new students at the academy. As he walked, he was surprised to see Katie standing in the middle of the path, talking to herself, wondering about that dreadful future the flower mentioned. Guy approached her and advised her not to worry about what the jackflowers say, since they absorb magical particles from the soil and that affects their personality. Guy explained that the magical plants at the academy are particularly nasty. Katie replied that she didn't know much about magical plants, but she loves magical animals. Guy asked her which ones she liked best, and she told him she loved all of them, from the small to the large, even the slimy ones. At that moment, while Oliver was following their conversation, Sheila appeared and scolded Pete, telling him to watch where he was going because he nearly stepped on someone's leg. She questioned what accusation that girl would have made against him. Suddenly, a samurai walked past our heroes, and everyone looked at her in surprise, admiring her strange outfit. The academy quickly organized a parade of magical creatures, and Guy said it was the first time he saw a dragon like that. Oliver informed him that what he was seeing was a Fafnir, a creature with shiny scales. Guy remarked that Oliver seemed knowledgeable about a lot of things. Oliver replied that he only knew what he read in encyclopedias. Just then, Guy turned to Katie and asked if she didn't say she loved animals. She confirmed this and then told him they let the troll walk in the parade just like the other magical creatures. Guy informed her that trolls don't understand their language anyway, and the wild ones attack people, so they always need taming. Katie replied angrily that humans were the ones invading the trolls' territory, but they were actually gentle creatures by nature. Guy responded that they ruin their fields every year, to which Katie justified that the land of those fields originally belonged to them. At that moment, Pete asked them to stop talking because they were blocking his reading. Katie apologized to him, while Pete continued reading, noting that the griffin in front of him had different wings than what the book described. Then, Oliver suggested that they at least introduce themselves to each other, but suddenly Katie was hit by a spell that made her run at full speed towards the troll, which had become agitated for some reason. Meanwhile, Oliver and Guy started running after her, wondering what was happening to her. Katie insisted she couldn't control her feet and didn't know what was going on. Suddenly, the magical binding broke, and Katie fell to the ground in front of the troll, which was preparing to pounce on her. Just as Katie was about to give in to the troll, the samurai stopped in front of it and commanded it to halt. She then turned to Katie and asked if she could run. Katie replied no, so the samurai said it was okay, drew her sword, and everyone was amazed, wondering if she would fight the troll. Meanwhile, our heroes began thinking of ways to distract the troll using magical spells, saying that the samurai fighting the troll was akin to suicide, but they weren't successful in doing so. Oliver suggested using strong winds and directing them at the troll, then taking it down afterwards. They did just that and used the wind powers. Oliver made a small adjustment and used a fake dragon roar to sound like a real one, which successfully distracted the troll. The samurai then leaped up and suddenly brought her sword down on the troll's head, causing it to fall to the ground, much to everyone's astonishment. At that moment, the samurai turned to everyone, saying in surprise that the troll's skull was very hard, to the point that it felt like lightning struck her hand. Then she turned to Katie and asked her to give her a moment. As soon as her hand went numb, she would carry her. Afterwards, the samurai thanked our heroes for helping her take down the troll, saying that the dragon roar was incredibly loud and gave her the perfect opportunity to attack. After that, everyone entered the academy's welcome ceremony, and Oliver stood beside the samurai, asking her in disbelief if she had no plan for attacking the troll. The samurai denied this, confirming that the katana she had didn't even have a blade. Oliver told her that it was reckless of her to do that, because if the wind spell had failed, she would definitely have died. The samurai agreed, but considering it was her first day at the academy and someone had saved her, she deemed it a good omen. In that moment, Oliver spaced out a bit, remembering when the samurai's hair turned wild while she jumped to attack the troll, transforming into crystals through which magical particles flowed. He guessed that she had high potential as a sorceress. Suddenly, an announcement was made for the headmaster to take the stage. The headmaster introduced herself as Esmeralda, apologizing to the students for the incident during the parade, stating that she had indeed detained the rampaging troll and treated the injured as well. The samurai commented that just looking at Esmeralda made her sweat, and it must be that she is incredibly strong. Esmeralda continued, saying they were in the Kimberly Academy of Magic, which is a destination for students wishing to learn magic for 7 years. However, the academy prioritizes two things: freedom and the consequences that come with it, adding that only 80% of students graduate from Kimberly successfully, while the other 20% become incapacitated when their magic goes out of control, as the students' lives and deaths are entirely in their hands. After Esmeralda finished speaking, she allowed the students to ask questions, but the samurai told her she could touch her head in a circular motion to relieve the pain. Esmeralda asked if that was a question, to which the samurai innocently replied it was just advice. Oliver questioned if she was foolish, while Esmeralda continued, stating they would now proceed to the welcome feast, where they would have the freedom to talk to each other. She urged them to eat and drink as they wished, then suddenly made a random gesture with her hand, causing all the students to float in the air. They were surprised to find themselves transported to another location with seats and dining tables, where older Kimberly students welcomed them, urging them to enjoy some delicious white grape juice. Our heroes then reunited, saying they would finally introduce themselves. One of the girls said her name was Mishila, the eldest daughter of the McFarlane family, a clan of special standing that has been living in southern Yogland for ages. She asked them to call her Sheila. Guy then asked if all her family had a curse that made their hair curly like his. Sheila told him that hairstyle was a symbol of their family, and that he shouldn't be rude about her hair, assuring him that anyone who saw her for the first time would faint because of her stunning hairstyle. Katie introduced herself as an exchange student from Varnland, one of the federal countries in the north, and mentioned that she loves magical animals, thanking them for saving her. Guy then asked her why she ran so quickly toward the troll. Katie replied that someone must have been joking with her. Then Guy stated that he came from a family of magical farmers with a rich history in magic, so he knew a lot about magical plants. At that moment, Pete introduced himself, saying his parents had nothing to do with magic, and his family didn't have a rich legacy. Sheila remarked that he must have joined Kimberly as an ordinary student. Pete said he hadn't come to make friends. Then Oliver asked him if he was reading Alfred Werner's book about defining magic for non-magicians, to which Pete asked in disbelief if he knew it. Oliver replied that the short stories between each chapter are enjoyable. Pete agreed, especially about the third chapter, which talks about the magical judge. Then Pete realized he didn't know Oliver's name yet, so Oliver introduced himself, saying that his family had been practicing magic since his grandfather's time, but he currently lived with his relatives, having a brother and a cousin who were also students at Kimberly and had informed him about it. Sheila commented that the dragon's roar had shocked her a lot. Oliver replied that he was good at customizing spells and coming up with new ways to use them. The samurai then introduced herself as having been born the daughter of a samurai family in Torikaizen, in the country of Yamatsukoni, and her name was Nanawa. Nanawa shared that she was almost killed in a war until a passing wizard, who called himself McFarlane, saved her and invited her to Kimberly. Sheila was astonished, and Nanawa told her that McFarlane's hairstyle was similar to hers. Sheila said that was her father, who worked part-time as a lecturer at Kimberly, but she didn't expect him to travel all that distance to recruit new students. At this point, Pete asked Nanawa about the test she took to join Kimberly. Sheila responded for Nanawa, saying that every teacher had the right to recommend one student without an exam, and it seemed that her father had done that for Nanawa. Guy then encouraged them to enjoy the food, to which Katie enthusiastically said she was starving, while Nanawa held a plate of roast meat, claiming it was all for her. Oliver convinced her that they would share it, and he offered her the plate of food as if she were a princess. Later that evening, Oliver woke up in his room at 5 in the morning and tried to greet Pete, who was sharing the room with him, but Pete didn't wake up. Oliver then stepped outside to the academy's garden and was greeted by a voice asking why he woke up so early. Oliver asked who the voice belonged to, and the person answered that she was a secret agent sent by his brother, Gwen. Oliver asked her in surprise why, and she said that Gwen was worried about his safety and requested that she keep an eye on him until he got used to the place. She introduced herself as Karsti, and Oliver welcomed her as he continued his stroll. However, he was stunned to see Nanawa bathing openly in the courtyard. He conjured up a magical barrier around her bathing space and scolded her for doing it in full view of the boys' dorm. Nanawa explained that she was just cleansing herself from the last war. Oliver noticed scars on her body and asked her about them. Nanawa apologized for forcing him to see that sight. The girls gathered somewhere to wait for the boys. When Pete and Oliver arrived, Sheila asked if they had slept well. The boys responded positively, and soon Guy came along, apologizing for almost oversleeping, saying no one told him there were spirits in the clocks. Katie chimed in that she hadn't seen any clock spirits in her room. Nana mentioned she woke up early and claimed she was used to waking up at 6. At that moment, Guy noticed Nana was wearing the academy uniform. She explained that the uniform had arrived in her room the night before, and asked if she looked like a witch now. However, Guy noticed that Oliver's cloak was wet. When he inquired about it, Oliver replied that he was just imagining things. Pete jumped in, urging everyone to hurry for breakfast because the first day at the academy would be packed with lessons. They moved to the first class, which focused on swords. Teacher Garland instructed them to remember what sword arts were first. Pete raised his hand to explain sword arts, but other students whispered about him, saying he was trying to draw attention on his first day, even though he was just an ordinary student. Meanwhile, Pete raised his sword, stating that sword arts are the techniques applied using blades, noting that blades had been used as an auxiliary tool for magic staffs for over 400 years, since a famous wizard named Wilf Pedroil lost a duel against someone who didn't use magic. He continued, saying that wizards carry blades as a primary tool to handle close-range attacks. They can't fight with blades alone, but can also use magic without incantations to surprise or confuse the enemy. Garland added that in this life, a wizard would fight using both their magic and blade. He also noted that the first day at the academy usually starts with a duel between two students who know sword arts. Nana raised her hand to participate in the duel, prompting Garland to guess, so, it's Nana everyone has been talking about. Richard also volunteered to duel her, claiming he heard she defeated a troll using just just her sword, which would be a perfect chance to see how people fight in Asia. Katie remarked that Richard seemed to have bad intentions, while Oliver thought that Richard wanted to show off that he was stronger than Nana and would exploit her lack of swordsmanship experience. Suddenly, Oliver raised his hand, determined to duel Nana. Richard got agitated and asked him to back off. Oliver informed him that he had fought the troll alongside Nana and that they knew each other, so Richard should step back. Richard insisted that he should have informed his teachers and the older students that he had fought the troll. Oliver questioned him if he would do the same if his classmate was fighting for their life right before him. Sheila then interrupted, saying she was the one challenging Richard to a sword duel. Richard stepped back a little and, when asked if he was scared, he denied it and accepted the challenge. Garland announced that the first duel would be between Oliver and Nana, and the second duel would be between Richard and Sheila. Oliver and Nana stepped forward, and Garland cast an injury prevention spell on their swords, explaining that the duel ends when one lands a fatal blow to the head or chest. Both rushed toward each other, but Oliver decided to fight with the sword for a while and end things without using magic since Nana was a beginner at it. Nevertheless, Nana charged at Oliver quickly, and their swords clashed, creating a huge spark, while the other students watched the duel from a distance. As Nana pushed herself to the limit in her speed, she suddenly stopped and began to cry while looking at her blade. Before they could engage again, Garland intervened, reminding them that he had told them not to try to kill each other, confirming that they must have broken the fatality spell without realizing it. Oliver was left in shock, wondering what they were about to do, while Garland ordered them to return their swords to their sheaths. At that moment, Sheila told Garland that she believed the new students did not need another duel, so she would withdraw. Richard announced he had no problem with withdrawing as well. After the lecture, Nana caught up with Oliver, telling him she had never experienced a duel like that, and she was happy about it but regretted they couldn't finish it. Nana suggested to Oliver that they fight again with a real blade without any spells, but Oliver told her he would never fight her again because he did not want them to kill each other. Afterward, our heroes sat together. Guy mentioned that the spell-casting lecture right after the arts class had been quite a surprise for him, where teacher Francis said they needed magic staffs, not blades. Pete commented that the teacher had a huge number of followers, while Katie wondered what would happen in the afternoon classes, looking forward to the magic class. In the magic class, teacher Vanessa told them they would work with magical creatures as resources and teach them how to best utilize them. She then showed them silkworms and asked them to create several cocoons, stating that each student had to make 10 cocoons, and whoever made 5 would pass, but those who failed would face the consequences. They began working, and Sheila said the lesson seemed easy for her. However, she quickly burned one of her cocoons. Guy, surprised, asked if it wasn't easy for her. Sheila confirmed that she had done everything necessary, needing only 5, so one failure wasn't an issue. She offered to help Oliver and Katie, saying she would assist Nana instead, insisting that she knew there was an issue between Oliver and Nana. Oliver thanked her, while Guy yelled at her to help him too. She replied she would help him as soon as he understood her advice and stopped failing. At that moment, Vanessa observed the students, saying they were better than the students last year since none of them had been attacked, but she noticed that Katie was still on her 5th cocoon and asked her to hurry up, claiming it was just a silkworm needing magic nourishment. Meanwhile, Sheila told Oliver that Nana was finished, even though she was almost about to fail. She asked about Katie's progress, and Oliver informed her that Katie had been doing well until the 9th cocoon but had different goals than theirs. She didn't care about class and just wanted to save as many magical creatures as possible. In the final cocoon, Katie got distracted, and the cocoon turned black. Oliver ordered her to burn it immediately, but she tried to save the magical creature. Suddenly, the creature leaped from the cocoon to attack Katie. Oliver and Pete quickly rushed to help Katie and eliminate the creature, which led their teacher to inform them that they had lost 2 points for assisting Katie. Afterward, Katie apologized to Oliver for having to leave the class with her due to her injury from that experiment. She shared that her family had a bunch of pets, from dogs and cats to magical creatures and even half-humans, mentioning that she had been close to a troll named Patro. That's why she couldn't restrain herself when seeing an animal harmed in front of her, and she couldn't accept the idea that everything constituted resources for wizards to use without rights. Oliver remarked that she must have lived among angels but came down to earth and experienced the harshness of this world. Therefore, she couldn't stay an angel now. Katie looked at him in shock, while Oliver emphasized that if she could maintain her kindness, it would truly be noble of her, making her nobler than any other angel. Katie blushed at Oliver's words, and he told her that she had only seen a small part of Kimberly's side, so she shouldn't be disappointed and should think carefully about her decisions. Then Oliver abruptly opened the door, causing their friends to fall to the ground. He reminded her that she wasn't alone as well. After that, Oliver went out to explore the academy. Kirsty told him he needed to choose his friends wisely, as someone who couldn't even kill a silkworm wouldn't last long in Kimberly. He asserted that he would decide that himself. Kirsty then mentioned she wanted to go to Gwen, so she would leave him for a bit. Oliver asked her to send his regards to Gwen. The heroes gathered at the table where Guy noticed Katie had recovered. Katie informed him she was fine, while she noticed that Nana seemed distracted, guessing she missed talking to someone. Katie said she could talk to her whenever she wanted, then Then Pete stood up, saying he had forgotten his book in the spellcasting class and would go find it. Oliver told him that what is lost in Kimberly isn't easily found, while Sheila speculated that a troublesome fairy might have found the book. Oliver, Sheila, and Pete then went to search for the book, while Guy remarked that the Kimberly Academy building was said to be located on top of a massive cave that enveloped the building at night. Soon, Pete found his book, and Oliver told him they needed to leave the academy now because it wasn't right to stay there too long after dark. However, when they tried to exit the building, they were shocked to find the path blocked, and the cave had indeed engulfed the building. Still, Oliver calmly said it wasn't unusual for new students to get lost in Kimberly. They were soon surprised by a fourth-year student named Ophelia. Oliver recognized her and surprised her by mentioning that he had read her thesis on the rapid development from hybridizing Kraken and Silas. Ophelia remarked that he seemed to have a good knowledge of her research and asked him to come a bit closer, but Oliver suddenly left with his friends, telling her he wouldn't approach. As they tried to escape, they were blocked by Cyrus, a fifth-year student, who questioned why they were leaving a woman alone by herself. Ophelia followed them, stating they were mischief makers and needed a bit of discipline since they had left in the middle of her conversation. In that moment, Oliver tried to calm the tense Pete, while Ophelia mockingly asked Cyrus if he still desecrated every corpse that came into his hands. Cyrus replied that it was nothing compared to what she did by chasing after men to satisfy her desires. Ophelia widened her eyes in surprise and asked Cyrus if he was wrong, calling her by the nickname Succubus Demon. Ophelia threatened him to prepare for what would happen after that name, but Cyrus reminded her that he had previously torn her courage in half. At this, Ophelia quickly drew her sword, while Cyrus prepared to counterattack by conjuring a skeletal creature to attack Ophelia. She transformed into an enormous monster, prompting Oliver to declare it was the perfect moment to escape. Just before they could run, Cyrus placed a spiderweb barrier in their way, saying it's good their morale was high, but it wouldn't help them escape. Nanao then arrived, saying that was true because everyone who came to that place would die, making her nostalgic for the past. Oliver was shocked to see Nanao, as Cyrus began commanding the creature with his magic wand to attack Ophelia. Nanao then told her friends this was their chance to escape, as she would handle Cyrus and Ophelia, asserting that once she joined the fight, it would be hard for the sorcerers to catch up. Meanwhile, Cyrus and Ophelia exchanged insults, with him asking her what abominable creature she would give birth to next, and her questioning him from which corpse he took that spine. Nanao then ran towards the sorcerers, telling her friends they had to escape. Oliver tried to follow her, but suddenly, flames erupted in the area, and Alvin, the student council president of Kimberly, appeared, stating it was clear when he explained the right and wrong way to recruit new students. Cyrus replied to Alvin that he hadn't changed. He first spread his flame and then spoke, calling him a tormentor. Alvin assured our heroes that he wouldn't let those two harm them, while Carlos, the fifth-year student supervisor, placed his blade at Ophelia's neck, reminding her that she had definitely heard what Alvin said. Alvin ordered Cyrus and Ophelia to return to the depths of the cave, threatening them with punishment later. The two returned to their places as Carlos told our heroes that their first day had been a bit difficult, but they were safe now. Alvin responded in surprise that he was still astonished they managed to escape without being kidnapped, because they weren't the only lost ones in Kimberly. After leaving the cave, Katie expressed concern for Nanao, and Nanao apologized to her, while Oliver scolded her, wondering if she wanted to die. Oliver grabbed her by the collar, recalling when she told him in the academy that it took just one person's death for the rest to escape. He curiously asked her how she dared to attempt that suicide. Sheila intervened, calming him down and asking them to talk somewhere else. After that, everyone asked Nanao what she intended to do. Nanao stated she had lost all desire for life a long time ago and didn't feel alive at all after fighting one of the worst battles where their enemy Yoshihisa led 50,000 soldiers while her army had about 200. All she remembered was the killing until she realized she was inside the enemy's camp. She charged with her sword towards General Yoshihisa, determined to kill him, but one of the soldiers cut her path with his sword, which she split in half. At that moment, Yoshihisa ordered his soldiers to take down Nanao, mocking her for her youth and asking if she would accept candy instead of killing him. Nanao told him she would rather have his son Yasutsuna instead because he was the strongest fighter in his clan. She asked him to make his son fight her, but Yoshihisa informed her she had just killed his son without realizing it. Nanao looked at the soldier she had killed earlier and realized he was Yoshihisa's son. Yoshihisa then told her he wouldn't even ask for her name because she would die forgotten without a name. He ordered his soldiers to kill her, and the soldiers approached Nanao with their spears, only to be surprised that their spears wouldn't move from their spots. Then, a Western sorcerer appeared and explained how they could kill a soldier without even taking his name. The sorcerer stated he was drawn to kids with high potential as a teacher, so it would be a waste to let her die. He approached Nanao and asked if she wanted to go to his country to become a sorceress. Nanao snapped back to reality, expressing she wanted to achieve her dream in that Academito have a fair battle against a foe with whom she had no animosity. When she fought Oliver, she felt that was the happiness she had been searching for. She then cried, stating she felt regret when she realized Oliver had no reason to fight her to the death, which pained her so much that she lost interest in everything around her and preferred death instead. Sheila then told Nanao and Oliver that she wouldn't allow them to kill each other. She asked Nanao if a regular duel didn't suit her. Nanao informed her that the fighting style she learned was primarily about killing. Sheila understood her and told her it was time to live her life differently, forcing her to stop seeking a place to die, emphasizing that being alive was what mattered. She explained to Nanao that whether she fell in love with the fighter or his blade, she should look at the person themselves, not just the blade, and Oliver was that person. Katie chimed in, promising Nanao she wouldn't let her die because she had become her friend. Oliver asked Nanao to promise him that she wouldn't try to kill herself no matter what, and Nanao swore to him, asking him to teach her how to live in Kimberly because she hadn't understood anything from the lessons. Oliver told her it wasn't too late for that, while Sheila added that at least she wouldn't be as bad as Guy. The next morning, Nanao met with her friends and apologized for causing them worry the day before. Pete assured her he hadn't worried at all. Nanao then suggested they move to class, walking closely alongside Oliver. She told him Sheila said she needed to look at the person, not just his blade. Oliver responded that Sheila didn't mean she should stick her face to his. At that point, Katie intervened, telling Nanao not to cling to Oliver like that. They then moved to class, where a student named Garland asked if he could demonstrate the sword chants. Garland mentioned he expected that question and clarified that there was a specific type of sword technique called sword chants, which the sorcerer uses within a single step and chant, allowing them to kill the opponent without failure or resistance. Garland explained there were 6 known sword chants, but they were working on developing more. In the end, Garland stated that those chants were highly confidential, and he couldn't disclose who could use them, so he asked them to return to their training and not disrupt the class. Nanao expressed her curiosity about the technique, and asked Oliver what he knew about it. He informed her he didn't know more than what he had heard. At that moment, Richard accused them of slacking in their training, and Oliver replied that they all needed to train as they were at the same level. Richard asked if he was accusing him of slacking like himself, to which Sheila intervened, telling Richard he was embarrassing himself with such behavior. Richard insisted he was talking to Oliver and requested to duel him. Oliver accepted, and Nanao urged him to fight with all he had and not lose intentionally against Richard. Meanwhile, Sheila privately confided to Oliver that she grew up with Richard and had always been compared to him, making her feel responsible for his desire to show off like that. Suddenly, Pete interrupted them, saying that Katie had gone missing after hearing about the uncontrolled troll being killed in the parade. Somewhere, Katie was pleading with Darius not to kill the troll. Darius asked her name, and when he learned her last name, he said he felt pity for her since she was born into such a foolish family. Katie told him she would overlook his disrespect towards her parents and asked for a chance to convince the troll not to attack anyone, but Darius stunned her with his magic wand, stating she needed to learn first. At that moment, Katie's friends arrived, trying to stop Darius from harming her, along with Milligan, a 4th-year student, who urged him to stop. Then, Teacher Garland arrived, stating that using painful methods to teach students had been banned in the academy for 5 years, and they still needed to conduct a thorough investigation into what happened during the parade. Therefore, the troll would remain alive for now, which the principal approved. Darius sighed and asked Garland if he had joined the civil rights defenders. Garland replied that he still held on to his principles, adding that civil rights defenders were no longer a small and powerless group as they once were. Darius told him to do as he pleased, but warned that the troll would crush Katie first. Katie struggled to rise from the ground, feeling pain, but Milligan approached her, stating she had been worried about that troll as a colleague who loves half-beings, inviting her to talk whenever she wanted. Katie then continued walking with her friends until they were surprised by a message from Richard, confirming the challenge for Nanao and Oliver to duel together. On the other side, Katie met with Milligan, suggesting they should try to bond with the troll. Milligan informed her that most trolls in Kimberly are used to being around people, but this particular troll had become withdrawn since the parade incident. Katie approached the troll, took some food, and said she wasn't his enemy, offering him some to eat as well. At that moment, Sheila asked Nanu if she minded dueling Richard. Nanu questioned her about it and agreed. Oliver remarked that they wouldn't be able to avoid facing Richard, and that the best solution was to accept the challenge. Guy asked them for the second time where the duel would take place, and Pete told him it would be in the first level of the cave the next day. Guy replied he hadn't forgotten, he just wanted to be sure. They then moved to class, where they overheard a group of other students insulting Katie, calling her foolish for caring about the troll that had tried to hurt her. Guy attempted to confront them, but Oliver calmed him down, while Pete mentioned he had no intention of fighting. However, as soon as Katie entered the classroom, one of the students mocked her and cornered her, saying that this class was for humans only, but he could show her to her cage. At that point, Katie's friends snapped and challenged those students to a fight. Because of that brawl, they were disciplined and detained afterward. Sheila then expressed her frustration at being locked up like that. Guy stated he took on 5 students and didn't regret it. Nanu commented that she took down 12 students, and Sheila said she expected that from Nanu and Guy, but she couldn't believe Oliver had started it. Oliver claimed he wouldn't defend himself and told them to insult him as much as they wanted. Katie apologized to him and also to Nanu and Guy for being unable to defend herself. Oliver reassured her that it wasn't her fault, while Guy told her it was the perfect moment to vent their anger since those students had insulted her in front of them. Katie thanked them but added that it made things worse because most of their first-year classmates were now against them. Richard would surely take advantage of this situation however he could. Nanu said they would be powerless alone like this, and Katie remarked that tomorrow's duel would never be fair. She asked Oliver if he truly knew that. Then came the time for the duel, and our heroes drew their swords. Oliver advised his friends not to hesitate to attack if they felt in danger. They started walking down a long path inside the cave, guided by Richard's friends to the dueling area. Guy wondered where they were headed, and Sheila explained that there were many places in the cave for a duel. Pete hoped Richard and his friends hadn't set a trap for them. Soon, Richard's friends led them to the designated spot, a Flavi stadium, where they were surprised to see a large crowd of students. Oliver questioned what was going on and instructed Sheila to protect Katie, Guy, and Pete. Sheila agreed, telling him that they were relying on him and Nanu. Richard appeared next, and many monsters were unleashed into the competition arena. Richard immediately split them with his sword. Nanu wondered what was happening, and Oliver informed her it was the traditional kobold hunting game, a game played by sorcerers, though some opposed it so much that it had become rare in these times. Richard then approached Oliver, who asked him what was going on, knowing he came there for a duel. Richard told him he wouldn't gain any honor by defeating them in a regular duel, so they would take turns hunting the kobold, with the one who slaughters more kobolds declared the winner. Oliver thought for a moment, realizing that Richard was skilled at this game. Since Nanu had never seen a kobold before, it was better for Richard to win so they could have a chance to mend their relationship with him. Suddenly, one of Richard's friends spotted a kobold escaping and chased after it, killing it amid cheers from the crowd. Nanu angrily yelled, questioning what was fun about what they were doing and how they forced those who couldn't fight to stand in the arena, competing against each other to harm them. The students then turned against her, throwing things and demanding she leave if she didn't want to fight. Nano turned to Oliver, asking to go because nothing here was worth drawing their swords for. Richard asked her if she didn't realize the effort that went into organizing this, while Richard's friends blocked her path, demanding she return and fight, or they would face her all together. Meanwhile, one student attempted to unleash the second kobold, but was shocked to find that what came out of the cage was a Garuda, causing chaos and killing someone. Richard froze in fear, saying no one told him a monster like that would be present. Everyone aimed their swords at the Garuda, trying to defeat it, but it skillfully evaded their attacks until it sunk its claws into another student, starting to wreak havoc. Oliver warned Richard that the Garuda was a divine beast, and they were not a match for its power. Everyone tried to open the dueling arena door, but it wouldn't budge. The Garuda became even more furious, causing destruction amid Richard's astonishment as he tried to attack it. Oliver calmed him down, warning that he would be the first to be taken out by the Garuda. Richard ran fearfully towards the door, and the Garuda tried to chase him, but Nanu cut it off with her sword, telling him to stay in place because she was his opponent, and he had to face her. The Garuda pushed back, and Nanu advanced directly toward it with her sword. Guy suggested they help her, but Sheila told him that if they went to her, they would only hinder her. Guy asked if they would just watch, and Sheila reminded them that she promised Oliver to protect them. Meanwhile, Nanu kept attacking the Garuda until it flew up high, and then dove down quickly, knocking Nanu and her sword aside. Oliver intercepted it and ran at it with his sword, trying to slice it, but the Garuda injured him with its claw. Nanu approached the Garuda and blocked its claw with her sword, while Oliver leaned back a bit to tend to his wound. Richard asked him how he was still fighting when both he and Nanu were scared. Oliver replied that he didn't think Nano was scared at all because she was a true fighter, so he had to help her, or the fighter would perish before he showed her how to act like a normal person. Oliver then returned to the battlefield, where Nanu continued her fight against the Garuda. He told Nanu that he would create an opening for her, asking her to take advantage of it and kill the Garuda. Both charged quickly at the Garuda, and Oliver struck it, but just as Nanu was about to hit, they were shocked to see that the Garuda had healed. Oliver paused in front of it at that moment to distract it, and Richard joined them in the fight. Nanu quickly jumped onto the Garuda's body and decapitated it, leaving everyone astonished. Oliver thanked Richard for his help, and Nanu, understanding, remarked that the winds were due to him. She thanked him for saving them, and he told them he was a descendant of the Andrews family, and no one matched his mastery of wind techniques. Oliver reassured him that everything was fine now. Richard told him he was ready to risk his life as a sorcerer, but he feared losing in the duel and embarrassing the entire Andrews clan. He curiously asked how they managed to fight such a strong enemy. Nanu replied that samurais don't choose their enemies to fight. They simply have to trust they will win once the battle begins. Then, Oliver extended his hand to Richard, telling him that it was enough that he stood firm in the fight, while most students fled. He assured Richard that he would never forget that courage. Just then, Sheila and the rest of the group arrived to check on Nano and Oliver. Sheila then noticed that Nano was injured, and Richard said she could use healing magic to treat Nano. Sheila thanked him, remarking that it had been a while since she'd seen how amazing he was. Events unfolded quickly as Oliver went to talk to Karsti, admitting he felt embarrassed about what happened in the Flavius Amphitheater. Karsti reassured him not to worry, saying no one expected the Garuda to enter the dueling arena. Oliver responded that it was Kimberly, and it was impossible to dodge the danger she posed. Karsti explained that was why she wanted to protect him, as her protection was the only way he could act when the moment was right. Oliver acknowledged she was right. Meanwhile, Katie was holding a plate of food and eating, telling the troll how delicious it was, and offering him some. Milligan noted that Katie seemed overly excited to have come to the troll even before the core classes started, but added that maybe this troll wasn't. Before Milligan could finish her thought, she was surprised to see Katie had convinced the troll to eat his breakfast, complimenting her on being amazing. Soon after, teacher Vanessa started the class, mentioning they should now be able to distinguish between the guts of Gargamas and Warg, then dismissed them for lunch. At that point, Pete complained about having to have lunch after Vanessa's class, but Guy chimed in saying that although he sometimes had to slaughter livestock back back home, he couldn't bear today's lesson. Just then, our heroes encountered the same students they had previously clashed with, who ignored them. They then discussed amongst themselves, with Guy remarking that at least they weren't belittling Katie in front of her. Oliver pondered about yesterday's incident, reflecting on how the Garuda seemed to target those who didn't acknowledge the rights of half-humans. Sheila guessed that this might be connected to the incident where the troll attacked Katie, or maybe it was revenge from the half-human rights group. Katie replied that she had no idea. Oliver reassured her they weren't blaming her for anything but believed that the spark yesterday ignited a war. Pete said he would feel better if they could identify those responsible for the Garuda attack and hoped the teachers would discover it. However, Oliver shocked him by saying the incident occurred in the cave, and the teachers would likely consider it just a brawl that got out of hand. Sheila remarked that the matter would have been different if many had died. Guy stated he had truly joined a frightening academy, while Sheila suggested that perhaps Nanao took something useful from that incident. Meanwhile, students were surrounding Nanao, asking her how she fought the Garuda, with someone inviting her to lunch. Guy then noticed that Nanao had gained a lot of popularity among the students, and Katie noted it was natural after she fought the Garuda, questioning why Oliver didn't get the same fame. Sheila offered to spend an hour talking about Oliver's fighting style against the Garuda, to which Guy noted she had already spent last night discussing it. He commented that compared to Nanao's impressive fighting style, Oliver's fight seemed bland and hard to understand. Guy asked Pete if he was trying to mess with Oliver's head, to which Pete apologized. At that moment, Sheila stated that only experts could appreciate Oliver's fighting style. She then decided to kiss Oliver as a sign of appreciation, but Nano suddenly arrived. When they told her about Sheila's intention, she also leaned in to kiss Oliver and asked him to kiss her back because she also deserved a reward for defeating the Garuda. Oliver stepped back while Sheila said Nanao's request made perfect sense. Katie shyly questioned what was happening, while Nanao asked Oliver to hurry up and kiss her. Just before Oliver could actually kiss her, his cousin Shannon interrupted, asking if he was really making friends. She then approached and hugged him before leaving, asking him to cherish his friends. Sheila inquired about her, and Oliver explained she was his cousin. He was staying with her family. Afterward, they moved on to chemistry class, where teacher Darius informed them that the materials they used could suddenly and drastically change, reminding them to remember that. Their adventures continued as Guy noted it was their 5th class with Darius. Though he had guessed Darius would pick on Katie after meeting him, he hadn't. Sheila suggested that Darius might be dedicating himself to becoming a good teacher. Meanwhile, Guy finished preparing his magic recipe, and Oliver offered to review the steps with him because the recipe contained dangerous materials. Sheila noted she would take care of Nano as usual, while Pete requested Oliver not to interfere with his recipe because he had studied hard. Oliver then began helping his classmates until Pete mistakenly added a material to the recipe that almost ignited. Oliver swiftly used a magic spell to flip the pot over and laid on it, trying to control it before it exploded. At that moment, Darius noticed what happened, praising Oliver and asking for his name, telling him that how he managed the situation showed how well he had studied everything he learned. He promised he would remember Oliver's name and face, but warned that Oliver needed to choose his friends more carefully. Afterward, Sheila told Oliver that Darius recognized his talent. Just then, Richard approached and warned Oliver about Darius, saying he takes talented students under his wing to ruin their future careers, stealing top students' research and passing it off as his own. Oliver fell silent as Richard urged him not to trust teacher Darius, assuring him he would soon invite Oliver to join him. Oliver thanked him for the advice. Then Richard mentioned that one of his acquaintances wanted to get to know Katie and the rest due to the troll incident. Mockley soon appeared and apologized to Katie and the others, saying she didn't know the troll would get out of control like that. Guy asked her why she did it, and she replied that her father had informed her that rights opponents embarrassed wizards everywhere, so she used her spell as a prank. He told her that betraying someone from behind was a form of cowardice. Mockley apologized again, then Oliver asked her who was with her and pushed the troll out of control. Mockley responded that she didn't know. She just cast the spell on Katie to embarrass her. The heroes then discussed among themselves, with Sheila questioning if they could really trust what Mockley said, who then made the troll run amok. Katie urged them to stop overthinking it, saying she was going to meet the troll. She then approached the troll, starting to ask it what happened during the ceremony, assuring it she knew it wouldn't harm anyone without reason. On the other hand, Oliver was teaching Nanao a spell, asking her to first imagine what she wanted to do in her mind. Back to Katie, she wished she could talk to the troll more. To her surprise, it spoke, asking her not to come to it again, because the enemy was a very dangerous person. Meanwhile, Nanao started a wind spell, and Oliver told her she shouldn't rush to master it. Nanao insisted she wanted to master it quickly since it was the first spell she had done with everyone, and she wanted to cast it again with them, even though she thought the troll wouldn't escape again. Oliver asked what she meant by escaping, and she told him she noticed the troll running towards the academy's gate for a moment. Oliver thought about how there was a huge difference between the troll trying to flee and it going out of control. Then he and Nanao immediately ran toward the troll's dorm. Oliver found Katie's blade lying on the ground, and the troll told him that the enemy took Katie away. Oliver asked where the enemy had taken Katie, and the troll replied that perhaps it was to the same place, which was dark and deep. Oliver realized that Katie had been taken to the cave and told Nanao they had to go after her. They didn't have time to waste. At that moment, Nanao was amazed at the troll's ability to speak and understand human language, which Oliver explained was due to activists who developed the half-human language, believing this would grant half-humans the same rights as humans. However, that project was criticized and abandoned. Yet, Oliver speculated that someone might still be testing it on the troll. He further clarified that he was now sure the troll tried to escape the parade because someone was messing with its mind, a person who knew the biology of trolls very well. They stopped at some location in the cave, with Oliver stating that it was dangerous to delve deeper, but if they could contact Alvin. Before Oliver could finish his thought, both were startled by what seemed like an explosion when Milligan appeared. She told Oliver that contacting Alvin would cause her trouble, as she wasn't in the mood for that. Oliver looked up, shocked to see Milligan, who welcomed him and Nanao, saying they were now in her private lab. She expressed her annoyance at them for defeating the Garuda, which had taken her a year to make it her follower, and they killed it instead. Oliver glanced a bit further ahead, and saw Katie lying down, asking Milligan what she had done to her. Milligan replied that she hadn't done anything to Katie yet. She brought her because she awakened the troll's speaking ability. Milligan explained she had been experimenting on the troll for a long time, but it had always refused to speak with her. She then summoned her magical tools, declaring that she would conduct a brain scan on Katie because she was curious to know how Katie had awakened the troll's ability to talk. She asked Oliver to leave Katie to her, saying she had a lot of experience and would return her after taking a look at her brain. Nano then charged at Milligan with her sword, saying there was no point in talking, but Milligan cast a petrification spell on Nanao, freezing her in place. Oliver quickly dispelled that spell. At that moment, Milligan stated that she received the basilisk as a gift from her father for protection, which had killed 5 of her siblings before settling within her. She introduced herself again, saying she was a rights activist, specializing in the biology of half-humans, and was nicknamed Milligan Eye of the Snake because of that basilisk. Milligan's eyes flared with readiness for the attack, prompting Oliver to instruct Nanao not to look at Milligan. The two charged at Milligan with their swords, but she managed to fend off their attack. Oliver took cover to protect himself from Milligan's counterattack, while Nanao fiercely rushed at Milligan undeterred by the confrontation. Both showcased their sword skills, with Milligan expressing admiration for Nanao's speed and finesse, acknowledging that the rumors about her were indeed true. Nanao possessed extraordinary speed. Meanwhile, as Nanao became engrossed in Milligan's talk, Milligan surprised her with a trap, nearly causing Nanao to trip and fall. Fortunately, Oliver intervened just in time, saving Nanao from the tumble. Milligan then taunted, noting that Oliver only intervened when Nanao let her guard down. Oliver used the wall for cover to conceal his attack and lunged quickly at Milligan, but she defended herself effortlessly, declaring it a cheap trick. Nanao attacked again, prompting Milligan to remark on Nanao's tenacity, admitting she struggled to duel Nanao head-on and decided to resort to magic. Milligan cast her spell and unleashed a blinding light in the area, followed by a tremendous explosion. Oliver responded by casting a spell of his own. Milligan questioned why he didn't just cast a straightforward spell in front of her. At that moment, Nanao charged at Milligan to attack, but Milligan suddenly weakened the ground beneath her, creating a deep hole and sending Nanao tumbling inside. Just as Milligan was about to incinerate her, she was taken aback when Nanao sensed the source of the spell and redirected it with her katana. Milligan stared in astonishment as she drew her sword, determined to test Nanao's strength further. Milligan directed her flame toward Nanao, but Oliver joined Nanao, and together they blocked Milligan's attack. Milligan, surprised, exclaimed she thought they were just a side note to the Katsi matter. Oliver then asked Nanao if she could execute their plan. Curious, Milligan inquired how they planned to entertain her. At that moment, Nanao dashed toward Milligan, while Oliver internally decided to distract her by casting spell after spell, ensuring Milligan wouldn't see Nanao's assault coming. However, Oliver quickly realized that Milligan had a hidden eye in her left hand. Thus, he slowed Nanao's approach. But unfortunately for Milligan, Nanao outsmarted her and deftly overcame her magical eye, causing Milligan's hand to suddenly drop to the ground. At that moment, Nanao told Oliver they had won. He asked her what she had just done, but Nanao appeared unaware of her actions. Oliver thought to himself that Nanao had just used a sword chant. It didn't match any of the 6 known sword chants. It was an unknown chant that no one else in this world had knowledge of. The two then settled next to Milligan, where Oliver began to tend to her wounds. Nanao stated that Milligan certainly hadn't intended to kill them. Oliver assured her that Milligan would be fine now and suggested returning Katsi to the academy dormitory. Nanao joyfully announced she would now receive a victory kiss, but they were startled by the arrival of Alvin and Carlos, who inquired if they were okay. Carlos mentioned they had received information from an anonymous source about their location, while Alvin expressed surprise at their ability to take down Milligan. Afterward, they returned to the academy dormitory, where Katsi awakened. Oliver recounted everything about Milligan, and Sheila commented that Katsi had succeeded in communicating with the troll, surprising Milligan. Katsi asked about the troll's fate, to which Oliver guessed that it would consider its eye unique, as it was the only troll affected by the intelligence experiment. Overjoyed, Katsi approached Oliver and Nanao, hugging them in gratitude. Katsi then decided to give Milligan a hard slap before determining how to proceed with their relationship, asserting she would change the academy for the better during her time there until she graduated. Oliver tearfully realized that he had managed to protect something. As our heroes walked through the academy halls, Darius crossed their path, asking Oliver to talk about something. The two stepped aside, and Darius explained they were in the process of recovering a student's research, a task usually left to others. He clarified the research belonged to an exceptionally gifted student who had come dangerously close to a spell and had died. Oliver understood that magic had consumed this student. Darius confirmed that those who are consumed by magic always leave behind some form of new discoveries. Suddenly, a monster appeared before Darius and Oliver, which Darius immediately cleaved in half with his sword. Oliver marveled, telling Darius those monsters were stronger than Garuda, yet he had defeated them without even chanting. Darius then took him to a location with a large magical circle. Oliver asked him if he knew what had happened to that troll beforehand. Darius questioned why he assumed that. Oliver replied that the logical explanation for wanting to get rid of that troll was to hide the evidence. He further explained he also had proof that Darius had been supplying Milligan with half-breeds. Darius inquired how Oliver discovered that. Oliver asked about Darius's motive for assisting Milligan in her research, to which Darius replied his goal was to eradicate folly from humanity. Since the dawn of mankind, society had been made up of 1% geniuses and 99% fools, and he aimed to change that by altering the source of human intelligence. Oliver questioned whether he intended to use the same method on humans too. Darius did not deny it, but mentioned that acquiring samples of half-breeds for his research would be challenging from now on. Oliver then asked what Darius wanted from him. Darius expressed he wanted his assistance in his endeavors. When Oliver inquired where Darius was and what he was doing in 1525 during the night of the 8th day of the 4th month, Darius remarked that Oliver's question was intriguing and asked how much he knew. Oliver, growing agitated, demanded an answer since he was the one asking. Darius replied he was surprised that such a woman still had living relatives. Oliver thanked him for not changing over the past 7 years and remaining the same Darius he had always loathed. Oliver placed his hand on his sword, telling Darius to draw his sword anytime he wanted. Darius drew his sword and lunged toward Oliver with malice, threatening him not to kill him in a human way. They then began to showcase their sword fighting skills. At this moment, Oliver foresaw the future and realized Darius was a better fighter. He decided to use the 4th sword chant to eliminate Darius. Before long, Oliver managed to take Darius down, who fell to the ground puzzled, wondering how Oliver used the 4th sword chant, as he was supposed to have died with that woman 7 years ago. Oliver informed him he had inherited some skills from his mother. Darius was taken aback as Oliver told him the pain spell could recreate the pain the user felt personally. Oliver then moved closer to Darius, stating he had felt all 128 forms of pain he inflicted on his mother and would continue to torment him with those spells, returning every ounce of pain he had caused his mother. Oliver then stood up, telling Darius to search for the magic words that would lead him to forgive him. He cast the first spell, causing Darius to cry out in pain as he asked how he could dare do that to his teacher. Was he trying to defy the whole academy? Oliver continued to torment Darius while recalling the moment he ambushed his mother, telling him it was pain number 57, which was nothing compared to what his mother had endured. He then asked Darius about the magic words. Darius begged him to kill him. At that moment, Gwen and Shannon arrived, asking Oliver if it was over. Oliver confirmed it, while Gwen inquired about his blood pressure now. Oliver told him he could only use it 2 more times, but he would die if he did so again. Gwen urged him to rely on them. They would pave the way for him. Kirsty then appeared before Oliver for the first time, stating that serving him was an honor. Oliver recognized she was the one who informed Alvin about his incident with Milligan. Gwen quickly introduced Oliver to his mother's followers, and Oliver wore the crown. His mother's followers asked him to rule them and guide them until all the traitors who betrayed their mother were dead. Oliver vowed to kill everyone, stating there were 6 left, and he would not allow any of them to survive. After 4 months, all the teachers gathered together, and at that moment, Vanessa told Principal Esmeralda that they had come to discuss Darius. Esmeralda responded that it had been 4 months since Darius disappeared, so they could consider him dead. Francis was surprised, saying that Darius wasn't the kind to foolishly get himself killed in a cave. Enrico replied that this meant someone must have killed him. Vanessa said that something like that couldn't have been done by just anyone, as it would either have to be one of the 6, or that boy Garland, or even McFarlane could have done it too. Just then, McFarlane appeared suddenly, mockingly asking what all the praise was about. Vanessa asked him what he would do if he came back, while the principal asked him not to interrupt. McFarlane apologized, saying he just liked to keep things exciting when they got dull. The principal understood, and said that none of them were responsible for Darius's disappearance, and that they wouldn't discuss the matter further. Vanessa then asked what the principal would do if she discovered the one responsible for Darius's disappearance was a student. The principal replied she would make him suffer in despair. In the boys' dormitory, Pete was having a nightmare and woke up gasping. When Oliver felt him, he asked what was wrong, and Pete told him to stay away, throwing a book at his face to keep him from coming close to his bed. In the academy courtyard, Pete sat alone, and Nanu wondered what was wrong with him since he had been acting strangely since breakfast. Katie asked him if Guy had done something to him. Guy, shocked, asked Katie why he would be responsible for Pete's state. Katie told him he was the only one acting recklessly among them. Guy replied that he was always very kind. When the two of them began to argue, Pete shouted at them to be quiet and leave him alone. At that moment, Oliver asked Guy and Katie to let Pete be. Miss Cornwallis walked past the group, and Sheila tried to talk to her, but she ignored her. Nanu then asked Sheila about Cornwallis, and Sheila told her that Cornwallis was her relative and Faye was her companion. Sheila continued sadly, saying that Cornwallis had been ignoring her since she started school at Kimberly. Guy commented that everyone Sheila knew had some issue. Suddenly, a new teacher named Dustin appeared and told all the students that he would teach them how to ride a broom today. Katie excitedly exclaimed that she would finally move to the class she had been looking forward to for so long. It had been impossible to switch classes before half a year had passed. Nanu showed concern, saying she didn't think she could fly on a broomstick. Oliver told her she had misunderstood. Nanu looked at him in astonishment as Oliver explained that brooms didn't fly in the sky. At that moment, their teacher Dustin told them to get ready and warned them that some brooms might have a temper sometimes. Dustin opened a spacious area, and when the students entered, they found many brooms flying in the air. Nanu exclaimed in astonishment that brooms weren't just objects but living beings. Dustin explained that brooms were magical creatures with firm, branched twigs connected to a handle. He clarified that these creatures lived on the essential elements, magical particles found in the atmosphere, and the magical energy they received from wizards, giving them the ability to fly the wizards around. Dustin then picked up one of the brooms and told Nanu that brooms, however, would only allow themselves to be ridden by a wizard they liked. He asked her to find her suitable partner among the brooms. Guy tried to get his own broom but failed, while Katie was confused, saying that all the brooms were nice. Oliver, on the other hand, quickly got his broom. He told Sheila that he had been in harmony with his broom for a while. At that moment, Sheila noticed that all the brooms loved Nanu and followed her. Oliver explained that this was normal, considering the magical energy Nanu possessed. But Nanu kept walking and didn't choose any broom. Soon, she reached a lonely broom in the corner, and Dustin told her that this broom was an exception and could harm her if she wasn't careful. Nanu approached the broom anyway and told it that her previous horse was like this, understanding that it only let its true master ride it. Then the broom stopped moving. Nano said she wouldn't force it but wanted to let it know that she admired it and chose it over the others. At that moment, the broom jumped up and fell down in front of Nanu. She grabbed it, saying she chose it as her partner, and then flew out with it, astonishing everyone, especially Dustin, who said he had tried to tame that broom many times but couldn't. While everyone watched Nanu flying, Oliver thought to himself that the broom belonged to his mother, and it was no wonder it chose Nanu to fly with. Afterward, our heroes sat together, and Nanu expressed her happiness about flying the broom. Katie shared her excitement and couldn't wait for the next classes, while Guy said he and Pete didn't do so well in this class. Pete said he was going to the next class, and here Sheila expressed her surprise at Darius's disappearance, saying rumors said he had gone missing in the cave, but she found it hard to believe. Guy added that it was also said he went missing in an internal fight among the teachers. Then McFarlane's voice interjected, suggesting it might have been the act of a wizard harboring a grudge against Kimberly. At that moment, Sheila was surprised to see her father, who immediately hugged her, saying she had become more beautiful since their last meeting. Sheila pulled away, reminding him that she had warned him not to act like this in public. McFarlane then looked at Nanu and asked about her well-being. She replied she was fine thanks to him. Sheila scolded him for pulling Nanu from Asia to his country and then disappearing. McFarlane replied that he knew she would look after Nanu. Sheila nervously asked what kind of parent he was to put that responsibility on his daughter. McFarlane addressed Nanu, stating that she seemed to have formed many friendships here, explaining he intended to talk to her more but was there for the class. Sheila pondered for a moment as she repeated, class to herself. McFarlane told her he would be their chemistry teacher for a while. In class, he asked the students if anyone had read his book, My Journey to the East. Cornwallis raised her hand, saying she had read it, and Pete also raised his hand, claiming he had a question about a difference in part of the second edition of the book, which consisted of 25 volumes. McFarlane asked if he had read all the volumes, and Pete confirmed he had read the 3 volumes. McFarlane then asked him his name, and Pete told him. McFarlane said he would bring him a gift from his upcoming trip to Asia. Then they moved to the magical engineering class with teacher Enrico, who informed them he would teach them the basics and skills they would need to invent magical tools. He displayed several magical boxes and instructed his students to dismantle them within 60 minutes, or they would be in big trouble if they couldn't do it in time. He suggested they split into groups and start working. They did get to work, but Sheila managed to dismantle 3 boxes, while Oliver said he had done his best but couldn't dismantle any box no matter how hard he tried. As time was running out, Oliver ordered everyone to back away from the boxes and protect themselves. However, while everyone was running, Pete stayed behind. Oliver threw his whole body on him to protect him, and then many snakes shot out from the boxes. Guy, excited, said that if he had known they were inside the boxes, he wouldn't have been that scared. Then all the snakes jumped onto Guy, who sprayed water on himself first. As the snakes got to him, Guy released electricity from his body and killed them. Enrico told them they were amazing, and therefore, would receive a reward. At that moment, he presented them with something resembling a lollipop, saying they could eat it when bitten by snakes. Here, Pete thanked Oliver for saving him, and Oliver whispered that he wanted to talk to him privately about his transformation. Later, Oliver asked Pete if he was the one who switched genders. Pete told him he had a strange dream, and when he woke up, he found himself a girl. Oliver explained that his condition was incredibly rare, called gender inversion, where a person shifts between the male and female genders. Pete was astonished. Oliver then congratulated him, saying that condition was considered a gift for wizards. Pete was surprised by Oliver's words, but Oliver told him to cast the lightning spell, and then he would see if he was right. Pete cast the lightning spell and was amazed by his immense power. Oliver told him that in this condition, he possessed better power than anyone else. Suddenly, Carlos's voice interrupted them, saying he hadn't meant to eavesdrop on their conversation but had noticed something unusual about Pete since he saw him in the cave. He then handed Pete a message and told him to come to a meeting at 8 o'clock if he wanted to know more about his condition. After that, Oliver accompanied Pete to the first level of the cave, where Alvin, as the student council president, greeted them, saying it was his duty to check on order. Then he apologized for the incident in the fluffy auditorium and what Milligan had said. Afterward, Alvin asked Pete if it was true that he came from a family with no connection to magic. Pete was silent, and Alvin asked him how he found studying at Kimberly, assuring him that the place was scary and hadn't changed from what it was 5 years ago, even though he had tried hard to make it safer. Then Alvin took them to a meeting of those with gender-based magical abilities. At that moment, the other students welcomed Pete, who looked nervous. Oliver spoke on his behalf, saying Pete was a first-year student with gender inversion ability. When Oliver finished introducing Pete and himself, the students encouraged him to relax since he was putting in too much effort to protect his friend. Then Gwen started to play music, and Carlos asked everyone to enjoy their time. The next morning, our heroes saw a group of broom riders competing with one another. Guy was surprised they were doing this so early, while Nana said the broom riders looked like they were in a battlefield. Sheila commented that broom riding is one of the most important sports. Suddenly, a first-year student named Rossi appeared before our heroes. He introduced himself and told them he knew all their names. Then he turned to Nana and said she was incredibly talented. Sheila chimed in, saying that Nana's personality was more complex than just being described as talented. Rossi replied that he knew that, then looked at Pete and said they would meet later. With that, Rossi turned and left, leaving our heroes puzzled by his behavior. Next, they moved to Mr. Garland's class, where Oliver had just defeated his opponent in a duel. Garland then announced a competition between Pete and Rossi, and both stepped forward. At that moment, Katie noticed that Pete seemed nervous. Oliver told her he was trying to hide his feelings. The duel began, and Pete charged at Rossi quickly, but Rossi met him with a kick to the stomach, making Pete fall to the ground. Garland ended the competition, telling Pete that he was rushing things and needed to be more careful in the future. Rossi then mocked him, calling him princess, and wondering how he could be strong if he had so many friends to protect him. After that, Pete gathered his friends and asked them for special training because he wanted to become stronger. He noted that the battles in the upcoming classes would include magic too. Oliver said he would help, and Sheila said she would train him in the Reziath style to help him become a skilled duelist. Oliver opposed her, insisting that Pete should train in the Lanoff style. Sheila argued that Pete needed to try other academy styles, and they started debating each other's biases. Oliver was adamant about Lanoff, while Sheila stood firm on Reziath. Guy then commented to Nana that this argument was one of the top 3 most controversial topics in the magic world. Nana said she could teach Pete if they couldn't agree on a style. Guy suggested a compromise, and Katie proposed that Oliver teach Pete defense, while Sheila taught him offense. Both Oliver and Sheila agreed. Then Oliver told Pete that they'd teach him how to win in a magical battle using methods that didn't rely on just one style. He immediately started training Pete by asking about distances and what he would do considering the gap between him and his opponent. Oliver took out his sword and asked Pete to have a real duel against him. Before Pete charged, Oliver unsheathed his sword in front of him and told him that the first way to win was to use magic techniques, while the second was to cast spells. However, he made a mistake due to not knowing the correct distance. Oliver then introduced the third way to victory, saying that the person who is always aware of their surroundings is the one who wins. While Oliver trained Pete, Rossi was eavesdropping nearby. They then moved to have lunch, but Rossi interrupted their gathering and told Pete that he could help him become stronger. Sheila told him that interrupting them like this wasn't right. Rossi replied that they were attracting all the attention at the academy while neglecting everyone else, and he didn't like being left behind. He raised his voice and asked all the students if they felt the same way. Oliver asked what he was trying to do. Rossi replied that it was time to discover who the strongest first-year student was. Currently, he believed it was Nana, but others should have a fair chance to showcase their strength. Rossi then asked who wanted to participate in this challenge. Cornwallis said she would join, prompting Phi to ask her if she was sure, since she had been trembling in fear during the Garuda attack. Cornwallis told him she was just being cautious and waiting for a chance to exploit. Phi raised his hand, saying he would participate too. Nana said she would join as well. Rossi then provoked Oliver, asking if he would stay behind. Oliver replied that he had no reason to refuse to participate. Sheila said she would join too, leading Rossi to say they needed to discuss the rest of the details. Rossi presented a document stating he had registered all the participants, and the winner would be the one with the most badges. If someone lost a battle, they would give their opponent 1 badge, and when they lost all their badges, they would be eliminated from the dueling. Rossi added that the top 4 with the most badges in the finals would compete in a week. At that moment, a girl named Evelyn challenged Nana to a fight. Everyone was stunned and commented that Evelyn's spellcasting and aim were pretty chaotic, but she hit fast. Evelyn told Nana that she was nicknamed Evelyn the Cold-Blooded, or Stormwind's Evelyn, and provoked her, saying she was a worthy opponent for an Asian samurai. The duel started, and Evelyn launched her spell, but everyone was surprised when Nana deflected Evelyn's spell with her sword, sending Evelyn's sword flying away. Then, the victory was announced for Nana, and she returned to her friends, saying she had won. After that, the scene changed as Pete thanked Oliver for training him, while Oliver told him he was learning quickly and mastering the ability to gauge distances. Pete then asked Oliver's permission to go back to the dorm because he was tired. At that moment, Kirsty appeared and informed Oliver that Shannon and Gwen were waiting for him for tea. On his way to meet Gwen and Shannon, Oliver encountered Ophelia, who reminded him that she wasn't in the mood for a fight. Since he had resistance to her scent, she just wanted to talk. Oliver sat beside her and asked if she stayed in the cave all the time. Ophelia replied that she had returned to the academy building several times because she wanted to eat pumpkin pie from the cafeteria. Oliver told her he preferred cake. Ophelia asked if he and his friends didn't attract too much attention. Before Oliver could answer, she asked how he felt during the Garuda fight. He replied that he didn't want to feel that way again. Ophelia recalled when Alvin said the same thing, but thought he was very interested in him. Oliver asked her why she thought that. Ophelia answered that he resembled Alvin a lot, especially in how he took on unsuitable adventures for a first-year student. Then Ophelia continued, saying she and Carlos always accompanied Alvin in the past. She warned Oliver about Carlos, saying he would meddle in everything concerning him. After that, Ophelia thanked him for their short conversation, urging him not to get involved in adventures and to stay at the academy just for studying. Oliver then met Shannon and Gwen, who welcomed him. Gwen asked how his trip through the cave was, and Oliver replied that he wasn't used to it yet, but would try to get used to it. He then reminded them that they had met previously at Carlos's strange party. After that, he mentioned that he met Ophelia on his way. Shannon asked where he saw her, and Gwen chimed in that it must be too late to catch her now. Then Gwen added that Shannon and Ophelia knew each other well. Oliver asked Shannon if she was close to Ophelia. Shannon responded that Ophelia was the kind to feel lonely. At that moment, Gwen asked Oliver if he was sure that Nana had used the 7th sword chant. Oliver said he wasn't sure, but his gut told him she did. Gwen replied that Nana had an attractive nature that drew others to her, reminding him of someone. Oliver said there was something about Nana. He found himself constantly looking at her and not wanting to leave her alone. Shannon told him he had a crush on her. Meanwhile, Gwen calmed him, saying that feelings of attraction were significant for wizards, and it was possible that Nana was the one who would change his essence. He advised Oliver to keep his feelings in his heart and remain loyal to his friend as he always had. Oliver agreed with him. While Oliver was returning to the academy building, he was surprised to find Rossi following him. Oliver asked him to show himself and inquired if he did anything to make Rossi hate him. Rossi denied it, explaining that he didn't like being the center of everyone's attention. Oliver told him that Nana also drew everyone's attention. Rossi responded that he didn't count Nana because she was nice and didn't bother him at all. Then Rossi challenged Oliver to a real fight to determine who was stronger, saying they wouldn't use any magic except for non-lethal spells. Oliver agreed, and then the fight began. Rossi charged at Oliver fiercely, but Oliver blocked him. Rossi stepped on Oliver's foot and kicked him, claiming he fought dirty unlike him. Oliver told him to do whatever he wanted because those cheap tricks wouldn't work on him. This made Rossi angrier. He then crouched to strike Oliver during the fight and hit him with a fist that made Oliver bleed. At that point, Rossi told him he fought to kill, so there was no problem wearing such things. Oliver thanked him for making him realize he truly lacked experience. Rossi told him to keep talking like that, and he would hurt him more. But Oliver declared that there would be no more fighting because he would defeat him in just 8 moves. Rossi became even angrier and charged at Oliver, but Oliver quickly grabbed his arm and told him that he'd figured out that move many years ago and it couldn't be beaten no matter how clever one got. Rossi retorted that he was too full of himself. Oliver then loosened his grip on Rossi's arm, and when Rossi tried to hit Oliver, Oliver struck Rossi's hand with his sword, making Rossi drop his sword. In that moment, Rossi awarded Oliver a badge and admitted his defeat, saying he lost to the one he wanted to beat the most. Oliver told him he had a unique fighting style, but he needed to adopt one of the basic combat techniques. Rossi asked him what his problem was. Oliver told him he was jealous of his talent because he had a special gift he hoped to cultivate, while he himself felt like everything he had was given to him by someone else. Rossi said he didn't care. Oliver then continued on his way out of the cave, and he was met by Kirsty, who praised him, saying she admired him from the bottom of her heart. He told her there was no need to praise him as he still lacked experience anyway. After Oliver returned to the dorm, he started treating bait to regulate the amount of magical energy in his body. He informed Bait that it was just a temporary treatment, as his body was still getting used to handling magic in its feminine form. Oliver then gave Bait some tips on how to make the energy flow through his body correctly. He patted Bait's hair and reassured him that since he would be sleeping beside him, he shouldn't hesitate to call on him if he needed help. Bait mentioned they needed to hurry and sleep since they'd have to wake up early. At that moment, Oliver told him that he wouldn't be able to hide his situation from the rest of their friends for much longer. The next day, Bait confessed to his friends that he was gender-bent. Sheila congratulated him, saying he had received something rare. Bait explained he didn't know how to handle it. Sheila placed her hand on him and told him that he was gaining a new organ he didn't have in his female form, the uterus, which she referred to as the second heart of witches, where the most magical energy is stored. Bait was astonished as Sheila told him that the uterus would automatically open to provide him with all the stored magical energy when he ran low, but she would teach him how to open and close it. She started showing him how to manage that energy, and when Bait's magical energy surged, he questioned it. Sheila explained that this way, his magical power would increase by several tens of %. Nanao then exclaimed she wanted to experience it too, since she was a girl as well, but Oliver yelled at her. Meanwhile, Katie offered to take Bait shopping for clothes to try. They were interrupted by Rossi, who told them he had lost several battles after his fight with Oliver. Oliver asked if he fought anyone afterward, to which Rossi replied that some participants were dangerous, and cautioned them to be careful. Rossi then asked Bait if he had become a bit stronger before leaving quickly. Afterward, they moved on to their class with Mr. Garland, where Bait faced Cornwallis, who had threatened him. Katie noted that Cornwallis looked angry. Oliver urged Bait to focus on hitting Cornwallis and not to get distracted. Cornwallis raised her sword and angrily challenged Bait to come forward and fight her. She charged at Bait with force and knocked him down with her spell. When Bait got back up, Cornwallis knocked him down again, saying she didn't see any point in fighting him. Guy urged Bait to stay calm and told him not to use spells in this battle, but Bait got up once more and aimed his sword at Cornwallis, trying to hit her with his magic. Cornwallis unleashed a thunder spell, sending Bait crashing to the ground. She approached him, saying he must now understand the difference between them, and warned him not to get cocky just because someone praised him a bit. Bait recalled Mr. McFarlane's compliment about reading all volumes of his book, and learned from Cornwallis that he embarrassed her in front of McFarlane back then. Meanwhile, Katie sadly expressed how she couldn't bear to watch Bait lose like that. Oliver reassured her that Bait hadn't given up yet, and that the fight was still ongoing. Since Cornwallis was underestimating Bait, it might just push him to unleash all his energy. In that moment, Bait charged at Cornwallis with enthusiasm, and just as he was about to strike her with his sword, time suddenly ended. Afterward, Bait met up with his friends, and Oliver praised his performance, but Bait cried, saying he hadn't landed a hit on Cornwallis. Sheila told him that his practice with the Resit style was close to working. Cornwallis overheard and scolded Sheila for bringing Bait up to this level of embarrassment by teaching him how to duel. Guy reminded Bait that he almost succeeded and there was no need to feel discouraged. However, Rossi pointed out that a loss is still a loss. He did acknowledge that Bait put in effort, and even suggested he might start learning the basics too. Meanwhile, Katie sat beside the troll cage, wishing they could give him a better spot. Suddenly, a letter fell in front of Katie, which she later shared with her friends, explaining it was a special apology from Milligan, who left her personal research workshop. Oliver reminded her that the cave posed many dangers and asked if she was still learning how to protect herself. Katie paused to mention that the mortality rate of half-humans at the academy was 820 per year, and that the way magical creatures were treated at the academy was horrible. She vowed to change that, but first needed to establish her name as a researcher. Oliver asked if this was the reason she wanted Milligan's workshop. Katie affirmed, requesting their help in running it since she couldn't succeed alone. Nanao promised to protect the workshop as a warrior, and everyone joined in to support Katie. Bait then inquired if she'd have a place for her books in her workshop. Oliver insisted that everyone's safety came first, and if Katie could uphold that condition, they could visit the workshop the next day. The following day, they went to inspect the workshop, where Oliver noticed Nanao had brought her broom even though there was no place to fly it. Nanao replied that she wanted to spend as much time as possible with her broom. Guy instructed Katie to ensure they were heading in the right direction, and she reassured him that they were together, so nothing bad would happen. Oliver added that the cave contained all sorts of terrifying things, like attacks from magical beasts, traps, or encounters with other students. The most troubling would be facing off with any troublemakers from the upper classes. Suddenly, they encountered a nest of ball rats, but then other magical creatures blocked their path. Bait exclaimed that the path was filled with magical creatures, while Guy speculated that Katie had chosen that route intentionally. However, Katie abruptly halted them and threw a rock ahead, stating the area was sprinkled with thorn projectiles. She explained that while those thorns wouldn't kill them, they would cause pain. Bait asked how they would get through then. Katie sprinkled incense along the path, saying that the thorns would become dormant once the incense was lit, but as soon as she ignited the incense, they were startled by a trap, and everyone started running. Although they evaded the trap, all the thorns landed in Guy's back. They continued deeper into the cave until they reached a group of students hosting a barbecue. The leader of the group welcomed the new students and invited them to join their feast, but our heroes decided to carry on, calling the students odd. Sheila noted that the person who invited them to the barbecue was famous in his group. Guy identified him as Kevin Walker, known as the Survivor. Katie asked if Kevin was that impressive. Sheila replied that he had disappeared in the cave for 6 months and returned alive, even after they had already held a funeral for him. Katie suggested they might have accepted his invitation. Suddenly, they stopped before one of the girls, who warned them that wandering in the cave at this late hour was dangerous. Still, she welcomed all kinds of customers and offered them enough meat for 6 people with a generous discount since they were her first customers. She also provided them with drinks. Afterward, they continued on until they reached their intended destination. Katie blasted through a wall with her wand, declaring they had arrived at their secret base. Once inside the workshop, Bate wondered if they could use everything here. Katie confirmed that she had heard this workshop was the best research space in the cave. Oliver stated he would use it as a base for their research in the cave and would ensure it was a safe haven for them. Guy suggested they set traps around the workshop to protect it. They then enjoyed the grilled meat and relished it. Sheila proposed that they give their group a unique name to strengthen their bond. Katie asked Bate for an idea, but he admitted he couldn't think of anything as he was caught off guard by her question. Nanao stood up and encouraged everyone to take out their blades and raise them to form a circle. She told them that this shape in her homeland is called the sword flower, a symbol of the bonds between warriors. Nanao asked everyone to remember forever the shape of the flower they created in that place, assuring them that the flower would never be torn. She named the group the Sword Flower. Oliver said it was a good name. Katie then asked Sheila if that moment felt special as she wanted. Sheila confirmed it, and everyone rejoiced. Everyone settled into the workshop, and Nana said she felt like a child again. Pete noted that change isn't bad, and Oliver reminded them that it's thanks to Katie for her insistence on the workshop idea. Guy supported Oliver's point while Katie drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Cornwallis stood outside the cave with Faye, declaring that she would prove to Sheila that she wasn't just a substitute. In the early morning, Nana thanked Oliver for waking up early to train her, and he assured her it was no problem since they had the perfect space for it. He then asked if she could use the sword's chant again, but Nana replied no. Oliver suggested they practice casting spells instead, but Nana insisted he duel her with the sword first. Oliver declined, saying she needed to learn how to manage spells first, since spell techniques must blend with sword techniques. He told her his job was to get her to that point. Surprised, Nana asked what would happen after reaching that point, and Oliver responded that she would become a witch on his level. Excited, she replied that it sounded thrilling. Suddenly, they heard Guy screaming as he saw a troll appear out of nowhere. Katie urged Guy not to scream like that because it would scare the troll. Guy explained his heart nearly stopped when the troll appeared suddenly, and Katie said she thought it was time to bring the troll to her workshop. Oliver, astonished, asked if the troll came to the cave on its own, only for Milligan to surprise them with her presence, saying she brought the troll. Oliver was shocked to see her, and Milligan explained she just wanted to help a little. Meanwhile, Pete was still lying inside, waking up and searching for his glasses, which were handed to him by the moving hand. Pete was startled and ran out to join his friends, leaving everyone astonished. Milligan informed them that she had turned her left hand, which Nana had cut off, into a living creature. Sheila then asked Milligan about her true motive for giving the workshop to Katie. Milligan replied that she was investing in Katie's future potential because she wanted to share the credit when Katie achieves great success. Milligan reminded everyone that Katie had wanted to take care of the troll by herself, and this place would be perfect for it. Katie admitted she had indeed been thinking of that, while the troll expressed his love for being near Katie. Sheila noted the troll seemed more calm now, and Katie suggested naming him Marco. Oliver asked Marco if he knew them, to which Marco responded affirmatively, saying Katie talks about them a lot. Marco then called each person by name, saying they were his friends too since they were Katie's friends. Oliver approached Marco, saying he was glad to meet him. Then Milligan led them to the closest entrance of the workshop. Guy looked at the entrance and said it must be the fastest way into the cave. Milligan warned them, however, that passing through wasn't always possible because the cave had a mind of its own. She then told them she would leave, and asked them not to let their guard down if they continued exploring. Katie excitedly announced they would keep searching the cave, and they resumed their hunt. Guy remarked he never imagined he would walk alongside a troll. Oliver reassured him that Marco was a good guard. At that moment, Sheila halted them, warning that continuing would lead them to the second level of the cave, which was larger and more complicated than the first level, known as the Tangled Forest for its diverse balance of magical creatures. Guy exclaimed it was a forest under the cave. Just then, Sheila suggested they return, but was confronted by Cornwallis, who asked if she was exploring the depths, confirming she had been waiting for her to take her badge. In a rush, Marco lunged to attack Cornwallis, but Katie calmed him, while Cornwallis insisted using a tamed follower was not allowed in that competition. Katie countered that it was Cornwallis who had shown up out of nowhere while Faye managed to calm her. Cornwallis then suggested Faye could also fight someone. Oliver inquired about the relationship between Faye and Cornwallis, to which Sheila replied their bond resembled that of a master and knight. Oliver remarked that their teamwork would be strong. Talking alongside, Sheila suggested they could overcome Cornwallis and Faye, given the 6 months they had been together. Oliver nominated Nana to fight with Sheila, since she was also eager to battle. Suddenly, Albright appeared, declaring he would join Cornwallis's team. Nana asked who Albright was, and Oliver explained that the Albright family was renowned for their battle wizardry. Cornwallis then asked Albright if he truly wanted to join her team, and he said he didn't mind. Albright then shifted his question to Sheila, casting a glance at Oliver, wondering if Sheila minded bringing the nobody onto her team. Sheila became defensive for Oliver, but he calmed her and added he had no issues joining the three-way battle. Nonetheless, Cornwallis tried to reject Albright's participation. Faye quieted her, stating it would benefit them since Albright was targeting Nana. At that moment, Albright ordered them to follow him to the second level of the cave. Sheila reminded him that they had other students with them, which was dangerous. He asked her to send them to the dorms, but Katie refused to leave, insisting she wanted to see him fight. Guy and Pete agreed, and Marco declared he would protect everyone. Faye commented that Sheila had many friends, prompting Cornwallis to tell him to shut up. They reached the appropriate fighting place, and Albright asked if anyone minded adjusting the lethal spell to half strength. Cornwallis warned him he would regret trying to stab them from behind. He assured her that he was only interested in fighting the samurai, and asked her not to expect his help. Then the battle commenced. Cornwallis was taken aback as Oliver targeted Albright. He declared he would fight him because he wouldn't let anyone insult him. Cornwallis instructed Faye to battle the samurai instead. On the other side, Nana told Sheila she would finally get to see her blade, making Sheila promise not to let her down. Sheila charged toward Cornwallis, questioning why she hated her. Cornwallis told her that even if she explained, she wouldn't understand. Soon their swords clashed, and Nana expressed her admiration for the fight, while Faye noted that both had trained in the Rizit style since they were young. At that moment, Faye told Nana that their duel would not be as enjoyable, then sent a fireball toward Nana before running away, to which she remarked that he was playing chase now. She followed him. Meanwhile, the battle between Oliver and Albright intensified, with Oliver firing flames and Albright unleashing waves of water. When Oliver charged at Albright, he activated a wall barrier, but Oliver jumped and dodged it. Albright taunted him, saying he was just an ordinary person pulling acrobatics to defeat him. Oliver ordered him to keep his tricks until he could take him down. Albright leapt up, but as he tried to drop down with his sword on Oliver, Oliver blocked it. Albright said he was using a wide array of spells to distract his opponent, then aimed a direct hit to win the fight. Oliver realized that Albright had figured out his trick and changed the angle of his blade similarly. Albright mocked Oliver, saying he was just applying what he learned from books. However, Oliver surged at high speed and grazed his cheek, questioning how he would comment on that. Albright replied that he was bold. Meanwhile, Oliver's friends watched in shock, with Katie saying Oliver's recent attack created a flash in the sky. On the other side, Faye cursed Nana inwardly, wondering about her strength. Cornwallis told him he was weak and insisted he win at any cost. Recalling a memory from the past, Faye told Cornwallis it was her possession, and she could only command him, and he would tear apart her enemy forever. At that moment, Cornwallis raised her wand, transforming Faye into a giant werewolf, and told him to charge forward. She climbed on him, rushing towards Sheila and Nana swiftly. Nana met her with her sword but was stunned when her strike had no effect on the werewolf Cornwallis was riding. Sheila informed her that the reason was that Faye had become a werewolf, not a human, so his ability to take hits was completely different from humans. Nana launched herself again at Cornwallis and her werewolf, but was halted by her spell. At this time, Albright taunted Oliver, saying he didn't mind if he ran away to help his friends. Oliver replied that they didn't need his help and that there was no reason for him to run from him. Meanwhile, Sheila warned Cornwallis about Faye remaining in his werewolf form, reminding her that Faye had half human blood and half human suffered pain during transformations. She then asked Cornwallis why she was making her partner endure such suffering over a competition between first-year students. Cornwallis recalled when she had asked Faye in the past why her father never praised her. In that moment, Cornwallis angrily confronted Sheila, questioning what she knew about her and Faye to advise her. At that moment, the werewolf lashed out trying to attack Sheila, but Nana sensed it and defended her, stating to Sheila they now had to confront with equal strength. Sheila declared she would help Cornwallis to end Faye's pain as quickly as possible. On the other side, Albright mocked Oliver, wondering if he had run out of tricks. Oliver replied that his words didn't affect him, then thought to himself that Albright didn't believe in himself as much as he pretended. Albright suddenly charged at him, but Oliver blocked his sword, and their blades clashed. Albright cast a spell on his sword from close range, and Oliver scoffed, questioning if that was his way of winning battles. When Albright realized that Oliver had lured him into using that spell, he called him a fool. Oliver told him that they had reached the distance that wizards hated, and now he wanted to see Albright's fighting skills. Albright asked Oliver if he thought that was enough to defeat him. Meanwhile, Cornwallis ordered her werewolf to end things, telling him that the samurai posed no threat outside the range of her sword, and instructing him to focus only on Sheila. Cornwallis then charged at Sheila, declaring it was the end. Sheila cast a thunder spell, and although Cornwallis thought that Faye's body was strong enough to withstand it, once she and her werewolf entered the spell's range, she fell off the werewolf. When the werewolf tried to get up, Nanao stopped him with her sword, saying that this was their limit, while Sheila remarked that she had adjusted the spell's path and focused on teleportation, then sent a jolt of electricity through Cornwallis's body. At that moment, Cornwallis got back up and asked Sheila to face her with her sword. On the other side, Oliver and Albright continued their sword fight, each trying to throw the other off balance, until they both fell into the water. At that point, Albright said this wasn't a match. Oliver told him that while he might not have Albright's combat skills, he had great endurance and promised to make Albright hang in that place with him. Meanwhile, Sheila was dueling Cornwallis, derisively saying her blade had lost its shine now that she was alone, and told her she still lacked mental training. On the other side, Albright attempted to betray Oliver and push him away, but Oliver surprised him with a quick, powerful kick before casting his spell and knocking Albright to the ground. Oliver then pointed his sword at Albright, saying he had won since he had dropped him first. At the same time, Sheila's battle with Cornwallis intensified, and she suddenly knocked Cornwallis's sword away, causing Cornwallis to step back in pain while holding her hand, crying out about why she couldn't win. At that moment, Faye returned to his human form and told her that they had been the weaker side. Sheila then asked if they had always hated her. Faye told her she had been too perfect. However, if she died, Cornwallis would take her place because she also had McFarlane blood. Nana was stunned and wondered if that meant Cornwallis was Sheila's sister. Sheila explained that they were blood sisters, yet their father rejected Cornwallis because the old families had a tradition that the family wizards had to share their blood with the branch families, and their father followed this custom. Faye looked at Cornwallis with pity, saying that the more effort she put in among her siblings, the further her father distanced himself from her. This made him realize that her blood was of less worth than the main McFarlane lineage. Faye mentioned that Cornwallis had learned why her father had turned away from her when she was 10, which led her to decide to prove that she was more talented than Sheila and make McFarlane accept her as his daughter. Then Faye continued, saying that this was an impossible dream, but Cornwallis kept living only with the hope of achieving it. At that moment, Nanao approached Cornwallis and told her she didn't see any resemblance between her and Sheila, and asked if she expected her to treat her as a replacement if Sheila lost her life tomorrow. She replied that this was impossible because they were just tools in life, born as they were, not as other people. Nanao then took Cornwallis's hand and said she wanted to know her as Cornwallis and not as someone else. Then Nanao continued, saying she wanted to get to know the person who fought Sheila face to face with pride. Finally, Cornwallis smiled, while Oliver saw her from a distance and commented that this always happened when Nanao started speaking. He advised Albright to duel with Nanao someday. After that, Albright gathered everyone and told them that one of his servants had a girl his age named Emma. One day, he played chess with her, and although she was weak and he always defeated her, she persisted in challenging him. Emma read many books until the day she finally beat him, and she felt excitement and joy. Even though Albright lost to Emma, he was happy because he saw someone's effort bearing fruit for the first time. He then told his father that Emma defeated him and that her challenge was the most enjoyable for him. At that moment, his father got up and electrocuted him, continuing to beat him for half a day. Albright was made to understand what it meant to be from the Albright family. He then went to his room, waiting to speak with Emma again, but she never returned to his room because his father wiped out her and her family forever. In that moment, he realized he was never allowed to lose because his victories and defeats belonged to his family, not to him. Albright turned to Oliver, saying he would always despise others throughout his life. Then, Albright raised his magic wand high, creating a massive surge of energy that summoned a huge hive of stinger bees. Oliver, astonished, asked what he was trying to do. Albright replied that he had already told him he was from the Albright family, so he was never permitted to lose. He ordered the group to surrender, saying he would wipe their memories of this match and allow them to leave, warning them that resistance would change matters. Cornwallis pointed her wand at the bees and knocked one down, causing the rest of the bees to swarm in anger. At that moment, Faye threw himself onto Cornwallis to protect her. When Oliver and Sheila tried to resist the bees, Guy sprouted some plants to create a protective barrier as Katie signaled her friends to follow her. They immediately followed her, while Faye stayed in the beehive to protect Cornwallis. He told them to follow him, and they indeed managed to catch up. When the bees surrounded the barrier Guy had made, Katie lit an insect-repelling incense, saying it wouldn't hold for long. Sheila then asked Oliver about his plan, and he told her their only option was to surrender. Nanao agreed to that, but insisted on showing Albright what true defeat meant first, while Katie objected to surrendering to Albright, stating she was ready to fight the oppressors. Guy noted that if Oliver's surrender was for their sake, it would be better if he didn't do it. Oliver said the other option was to gamble, and who knew what the consequences would be. Heat told him to stop acting like their father since they didn't come to hinder him. Oliver apologized and explained his plan. Just as Albright commanded the bees to attack their heroes, he was taken aback to see that the bees were attracted to the barrier due to the insect attracting incense. Albright exclaimed that this was impossible, while Sheila was drawing the bees. Then Sheila surprised everyone by revealing that she was half human, half elf, causing the bees to go out of control and frenzy. All of our heroes raised their swords together and cast a collective spell that took out some of the bees. Albright directed another hive of bees toward the hero's nest, but Nanao charged at that hive with her sword, slicing through the bees in her path. Albright landed on the ground, and Nanao cut him off, demanding he raise his sword and face her, asserting that they would decide victory and defeat, with no ruler between them. Albright laughed, saying that was what he wanted. He then lunged at her with strength, and Nanao darted toward him like lightning, knocking his sword away in the blink of an eye. Albright fell to the ground in shock. Meanwhile, Cornwallis said to Sheila that she had already known she was half-elf, herself, but she didn't realize she had all that power. She asked why Sheila hadn't used it during their duel. Sheila replied that she never intended to use her power in a first-year student's match. Then Sheila confessed to Cornwallis that she had wanted to fight her for as long as possible because they hadn't interacted since they were 12 years old. Sheila then pulled out a flower crown, saying she had always looked forward to meeting Cornwallis each year because she was great at crafting things with flowers. Cornwallis asked if she still kept it, and Sheila replied that she cherished it, assuring her that she was still part of her family even if they separated. Cornwallis told her she would make her another flower crown. On the other side, Oliver reached out his hand to Albright, requesting they have a rematch when they were stronger. Albright told him he would grow stronger after tasting defeat, and then ordered everyone to return to their dorm, saying their cave exploration for the day was enough. Events unfolded as Alvin walked alongside the members of the Kimberly Council through the cave paths. Lasiti stated that if one of their younger students were kidnapped, their mission would be to retrieve him. Meanwhile, Carlos argued that they needed to stop Ophelia since the magic was starting to consume her. Alvin replied that they were already late in making such a decision, and that perhaps Ophelia had anticipated their actions. He felt that Ophelia acted quickly because she expected their plans. Carlos then whispered to Alvin, asking him to handle things if he failed to resolve the issue. On another note, Katie mentioned that Pete hadn't returned yet, and Sheila informed her that the senior students were doing everything they could to bring him back. All they could do now was wait quietly. Guy became frustrated, stating that several days had passed and wondered if they were searching for Pete correctly. Sheila replied that getting swept away by emotions wouldn't solve anything. Oliver calmed Guy by saying they truly could do nothing this time. Guy then commented that if he were in Pete's place, at least he could cook for him. Nanao interrupted, emphasizing that those who have lost their lives cannot eat, and the only way to offer food to him is to leave it as a sacrifice at his grave. Guy asked if she meant Pete was dead, to which Nanao responded that she didn't know, but in her homeland, 8 out of every 10 people lost in battle die. Oliver reminded her that the Chimera were designed to take people alive. Katie then asked what Ophelia would do with Pete, and suddenly Sheila stood up and told them it was time for class, asserting that their arguments were pointless. Later, Oliver met with Gwen, and asked if he could help him save Pete. Gwen replied that he and Shannon were indeed planning to accompany the student council to the cave, but Ophelia's lair was on the 2nd level, making it hard to find, especially since they couldn't afford to lose more comrades right now. At that moment, Shannon held Oliver's hand, reassuring him that she would definitely find Pete. Oliver continued on his way when Rossi crossed his path, saying he seemed sad and informed him that their small heroics had been cancelled, making the atmosphere unsuitable for fun. Rossi further provoked Oliver, suggesting he shouldn't do anything strange for his own sake, or he'd be greatly disappointed if he died quickly. Oliver ignored Rossi's comments and continued on. Meanwhile, Garland told Katie that Pete's situation hadn't reached the point that warranted intervention. She asked what state Pete should be in for them to intervene, to which Garland replied that teachers begin searching for students after 8 days, at which point the chances of a student surviving drop significantly. Katie echoed 8 days, and Garland told her to dismiss the notion that teachers would rescue her from everything. Elsewhere, Oliver spoke to Sheila, understanding she had contacted McFarlane. Sheila confirmed that she reached out to him as his daughter, and McFarlane had told her that if she couldn't protect her friends, the moment she'd gain them, she would lose them. Determined, Sheila insisted on entering the cave at night. Oliver warned her that was suicide, but she argued that at the time of Pete's kidnapping, she weighed the danger of all their deaths if they returned to save him against their chances of survival if they withdrew and left him behind. They hadn't known anything about those monsters. They could easily have died. Oliver tried to dissuade Sheila from her decision, but she insisted he let her bear the responsibility, or she wouldn't be able to face Pete again. Oliver told her he would accompany her, but she refused, saying if they both disappeared, the other 3 would head to the cave as well. Determinedly, Oliver said he would never let her go alone. At that moment, Maligan surprised them with her presence, stating she had something to discuss with them and Katie. Oliver quickly reprimanded Katie, asking if she planned to sell herself. Katie replied that it was what was needed to save Pete. Maligan asked if she meant she was going to let Katie do whatever she wanted with her body in exchange for saving her friend. Oliver stated he was canceling this offer since Katie put it forth without consulting them at all. Maligan then asked him about his plan. Oliver inquired about the chances of saving Ophelia since she was in the same grade as them. Maligan informed them that regardless of anything, there was only a 20% chance of saving Pete because Ophelia had little time left and the magic would consume her. She would eliminate the lives of the students she had kidnapped without hesitation, as long as it helped her in her search. Then Maligan contemplated for a moment and said they could raise the percentage to 21% if she trained them all to fight Ophelia. She continued, saying her research had hit a dead end because of them, and she heavily relied on Darius, who was now missing, putting her in a tight spot. This was why she sought Katie's help. Katie replied in confusion, "Help?" Maligan explained that she wanted Katie included in her search since she had awakened the troll's ability to speak. Maligan then admitted to our heroes that despite everything, their chances of defeating Ophelia were slim, because Ophelia was much stronger than her. However, they might still be able to save their friend. Maligan promised she would find Ophelia's hideout and take them there, but in return, she insisted Katie become her official partner in the search. Katie immediately agreed, telling Oliver and Sheila that she would do everything she could to save save Pete. Afterward, Katie and Sheila went to Nanao's room, where Nanao said she had been waiting for them and was ready for this. Sheila informed her they should expect the worst. Nanao replied it didn't matter whether she was rescuing her friend or retrieving his body. Katie apologized, saying Meiligin indicated she wasn't ready to leave yet, and Nanao asked her to take class notes, saying she was the only one she could entrust with that. Meanwhile, Oliver was saying goodbye to Guy, who understood the reason they were leaving him at the dorm and didn't want to hinder them. Guy then gave him seeds from a plant he had cultivated, which he used to create the barrier, telling Oliver he would use them if he needed them. He also gave him cake and asked him to save some for Pete, urging him not to do anything reckless. After that, Meiligin led them to the spot where they would enter the depths of the cave and tossed her hand to Katie, saying she would leave it in her care. If she didn't return alive, her hand would be the key to accessing her research notes. She urged her to take care of it. At that moment, Guy asked his companions to return safely. Meanwhile, Pete woke up in a strange place, wondering where he was. Ophelia approached him, asking him and his classmates to be good boys and sleep. On the other hand, Maligan informed our heroes that Ophelia's clan inherited the blood of succubus demons, mixing the natures of various creatures inside the womb, resulting in children. They aimed to create a perfect form of life, but they had failed, and their race had practically become extinct. Nevertheless, Ophelia's family found another way to utilize their wombs, transforming them into tanks that could create artificial monsters to perform various tasks. She asked if they had seen the chimera Ophelia created and continued by stating that Ophelia needed a great deal of magical energy to create such a chimera, which is why she kidnapped these students. Oliver guessed that Ophelia was trying to create a second chimera, to which Maligan replied that it could be something even more terrifying. Sheila asked if draining energy from a wizard was painful. Maligan speculated that Ophelia had put the students to sleep, but they would weaken over time as she siphoned their vitality. Sheila asked what she meant by vitality, to which Maligan clarified that she was referring to sperm. In turn, Nanao admitted to Maligan that Pete was gender reversed, raising Maligan's concern for Pete, suggesting that it might pose a barrier for Ophelia in producing more chimera. When our heroes visited Maligan's workshop, they met Marco there, who asked about Katie. Oliver informed him she was safe. When Maligan learned that the chimera hadn't attacked Marco, she stated that Ophelia hadn't completely lost her mind yet. Then, Maligan provided our heroes with magical potions to protect them from Ophelia's scent. Elsewhere, Alvin and Marcus had separated from Lasidi and Tim to search for Ophelia's lair. Suddenly, Alvin and Carlos ran into Kevin, who told them he expected they would take this path. Kevin then gave Alvin a map of the second level of the cave. Alvin asked in surprise if Kevin had been on the second level when all this happened. Kevin apologized, saying he still couldn't find Ophelia's workshop. At that moment, Carlos hugged Kevin and thanked him before leaving. On the other side, one of the monsters appeared before our heroes, and Maligan told them that their retreat had been the best solution, as they shouldn't face this monster until at least their third year. Then, Maligan requested they watch what she would do and learn from her. She jumped in front of the monster, stating they had to understand its properties first. For example, this thing was blind. Maligan explained that when fighting a giant magical beast, they must never stop moving, not even for a second. Then, she charged at the monster with her sword, advising them not to rush the fight or dwell on it either, and to ensure their strikes against the monster were decisive. Sheila soon exclaimed that Maligan truly made it seem easy by defeating the chimera, to which Maligan replied that in reality, finding a monster's weak points and sticking to a plan wasn't easy. Then, Nanao said she could take on the monster now, but Sheila ordered her to stop putting herself in danger alone. Oliver reassured her that they would support each other. Maligan stated that they would now enter the tangled forest, and they had to keep up with her. On the other side, Carlos recounted his first meeting with Ophelia, during which she asked him if he was the man who would next bear her child. She mentioned that every man who spoke with her lost his mind. Carlos then told Alvin that his encounter with Ophelia was due to the union of their families. Meanwhile, our heroes continued their journey through the forest, and Milligan told them that this layer was her favorite for hiking because its ecosystem was diverse and never boring. Sheila expressed surprise, saying, "The favorite hiking spot?" Milligan replied that, unfortunately, she couldn't hike this time because Chimera Ophelia might attack them at any moment, urging them to hurry. They moved on, crossing the area using the plants given to them by Guy. After walking for 5 hours, they stopped to rest, where Sheila offered Milligan some cake, which she enjoyed immensely, saying it wasn't fair for them to taste it without informing her first how delicious it was. Sheila explained that the tool plants were also a gift from Guy, to which Milligan responded that their rapid growth and durability were impressive. Oliver then remarked that they could use them to distract the magical beasts during combat. Milligan told him that she wouldn't mind his creativity and would support him. Oliver thanked her, and then went to fetch water from the lake, where he met Kirsty and asked her about Gwen and Shannon. Kirsty informed him that they were making their way through the second layer and would reach the third soon. Curious, Oliver asked what they had commanded her to do, and Kirsty replied that they had instructed her to return him immediately to the academy if she encountered him in the cave. She added that this had nothing to do with his enrollment at the academy. Oliver questioned why she was disobeying orders then. Kirsty replied that he had officially become her master since he had already been crowned, meaning his commands were more important than those of Shannon and Gwen. She informed him that his next target after Darius was very close, and he could use her to resolve matters quickly. At the very least, she could assist him by scouting. Oliver told her he would rely on her to inform him of any danger that awaited them, to which Kirsty assured him she would take care of that, yet Oliver warned her not to be reckless. Kirsty promised she would do her best to serve him. After that, Oliver returned to his companions, and Milligan informed them that the biggest obstacle in the second layer of the cave was the giant tree Irminsul, explaining that it was one of the rare beings endangered outside of the cave. As they continued their journey, Nanao remarked on the steepness of the path, wondering if they could fly up on their brooms. Milligan mentioned that it was possible, but warned her that if she tried to fly without understanding the layout of the area and its environment, she would deeply regret it. Sheila noted that they really could not take risks here. At that moment, Oliver wondered why there was no sun in the underground cave. Milligan told him that the reason remained unknown, but it was due to magical techniques from remnants of prehistoric eras, which was difficult to implement in their current age. Sheila pointed out that the sun in this place was unlike the surface sun because it didn't set. Milligan explained that this place was like paradise for plants that never sleep, hence its name, the Tangled Forest. They pressed on, with Milligan sensing something strange because this area was usually filled with magical beasts. Suddenly, the group stopped, and Milligan informed them that this was a magical being's lair, asking them to look directly at it without showing any signs of fear. When the creature appeared, Milligan asked what was going on as it didn't seem interested in those who crossed its land. She noticed that the creature was injured and asked if it had fought Chimera Ophelia. When she tried to examine its wound, the creature roared at her. Milligan stepped back and attempted to intimidate it with her gaze, but it became more agitated. She then told her companions to draw their weapons, but Nanao stopped her, saying they hadn't shown enough respect to the creature. Nanao placed her weapon in front of it as she approached and bowed, explaining that they were aware they had trespassed on its territory but were passing through to save their friend and had no time to waste. The creature stared at her thoughtfully, while Nanao assured it that they didn't want to force their way through with violence, and asked if it would allow them to pass. The creature retreated into its lair, and Milligan asked Nanao what kind of trick that was, as she surprised her with her actions. Nanao mentioned that she had heard magical beings could sense danger by a person's scent, so if they wanted to show those beings they weren't enemies, they had to confront them with a calm heart. She smiled, saying that Katie had told her this. Sheila exclaimed that the fact she applied this advice to a magical being looking her in the eye was unbelievable. Oliver remarked that the magical beast was injured and very tense, so it also wanted to avoid fighting as much as possible. Milligan complimented Katie and Nanao for their surprising creativity, along with their excellent chef Guy. She then pointed out that they would be down below once they passed through that area. Elsewhere, Cornwallis and Lynette were also making their way through the tangled forest, and Lynette tried to warn Cornwallis of the danger, saying that if they were found, they would die. Cornwallis told her that they should find the Chimera first and kill them. Otherwise, why did she think she brought it along? She reminded Lynette that she was a fourth-year student. Lynette replied that this would be possible if there were only one Chimera, but Chimera Ophelia were scattered everywhere. She asked if Cornwallis was planning to fight them all, wondering why she was so eager to meet a kidnapped pup, noting that any man Cornwallis pointed to would fall at her feet. Cornwallis insisted that Faye wasn't like that at all. Lynette, puzzled, asked why things always escalated between them to that point despite them being sisters. She knew they weren't actually siblings, but they were still sisters. Meanwhile, a Chimera Ophelia appeared at the lair of the magical being. The creature came out to defend our heroes, but the Chimera swiftly snapped its neck. Milligan raised her blade, telling her companions that it was time to implement what she had taught them, and she would stick by their side to support them. She commanded them to defeat the Chimera. Oliver quickly dashed alongside the Chimera and threw the tool plants, which rapidly grew to form a protective barrier for them. Nanao sprinted toward the Chimera, but it launched its attack. Nanao momentarily took shelter within the barrier of plants, while Oliver and Sheila continued attacking the Chimera, which was hurling fireballs at them without hesitation. Sheila noted that the Chimera's body was incredibly tough. Oliver responded that they would be tearing off the Chimera's outer shell and targeting its nerve center. At that moment, Nanao rushed at the Chimera like a cannonball, declaring that she would aim for the leg, but when she severed the Chimera's leg, it quickly regenerated. They had to change their strategy, especially when they noticed that temperature changes weakened the Chimera's exterior. Oliver and Sheila began working on this plan, to the point that Milligan was impressed by their remarkable adaptation. However, she expressed concern about falling into the trap of believing they had a chance to overcome a new enemy. Soon, our heroes divided themselves to finish off the Chimera, with Nanao leading the frontal assault while Oliver and Sheila attacked from the sides. Sheila unleashed a fire spell while Oliver planted the plants around the Chimera to hinder its movement. When Oliver approached to defeat the Chimera, it showered him with sudden thorns. Nanao screamed, and Milligan darted toward the Chimera with her blade, saying she had expected this perfectly, wishing for Oliver to hold on and not die. But when she got close to Oliver, she discovered that he had already taken down the Chimera, stating that he had anticipated this attack. At that moment, Sheila and Nanao rejoiced because they had defeated the Chimera together, while Milligan realized they had never needed her at all. The team continued their journey, battling numerous magical beings along the way, until they paused to rest in a cave. There, Milligan noticed that Oliver hadn't gotten enough sleep. Oliver admitted that he was worried about Pete's life. Milligan asked him why they were doing all this for Pete when they hardly knew him. Oliver explained that all 6 of them had come together for the first time during the Academy entrance ceremony when Marco was about to crush Katie. Even though Pete was the only one among them who wasn't from a magical family, he hadn't fled during the incident and had rushed with them to save Katie, which made him feel happy. Oliver continued, saying he was sure the other 4 were also happy about this friend they had met for the first time on Kimberly's land. Milligan, understanding, remarked that this showed the beauty of their friendship. She then told him that she personally admired him. She understood that Sheila was raised in a magical family and that Nanao grew up in an unconventional environment, but he intrigued her because despite having no talent and being average in everything, he still fought equally alongside those 2 gifted individuals. Oliver insisted she was exaggerating, but Milligan guessed that Oliver's past held some gap that had brought him to this stage. She then said that she was worried about him as a senior colleague. Suddenly, Milligan got up and said they were nearing the 3rd layer and that the environment would be harsher, so he needed to prepare well. Meanwhile, Albright woke up and asked Pete where they were. Pete informed him they were in Ophelia's workshop, prompting Albright to grumble about losing his sword and staff. Pete asked why he was able to move despite inhaling the perfume. Albright confessed to Pete that he was gender inverted and requested his help to escape. Albright ordered him to be quiet because if Ophelia discovered his truth, she would kill him. He then took out 3 orbs for Pete and instructed him to use them to escape, saying the 3rd orb was for summoning help. He urged him to leave at the right moment. In the library, Guy said there were no updates yet, to which Katie responded confidently that Oliver, Sheila, and Nanao would definitely save Pete. Katie assured Guy that all they could do for now was take class notes until their friends returned. Guy reminded her that 3 days had passed, and he hoped Oliver was okay. Katie told him not to be so pessimistic, insisting that no one could overcome Oliver. Guy informed her that they would be facing Ophelia, and that Oliver was the only boy there, mentioning that Ophelia's perfume had a strong effect on boys. Katie blushed and impulsively declared that nothing would ever happen to Oliver. Meanwhile, Nanao was walking with Oliver, praising their teamwork. Oliver told her to stop sticking so close to him, and Nanao jokingly said he must hate her now. However, Sheila, understanding, pointed out that Ophelia's perfume was bothering Oliver since they entered the 3rd class. Oliver admitted, shyly, that while he felt embarrassed to say so, she was right. He lowered his head and stated that he definitely wouldn't lose control, but he didn't want to lose focus. Nanao then blocked Oliver's way and asked how the perfume affected him. Milligan chimed in, saying it aroused him sexually, which is the effect Ophelia's perfume has on men. Nanao, innocently, asked what that meant, and Oliver shyly told her she didn't need to know, adding that her closeness always bothered him. Milligan commented that the innocence of Oliver and Nanao shone so brightly that she couldn't look at them. Sheila advised her not to interfere between them. Milligan replied she could never do that and asked what about her position. Suddenly, Milligan paused before responding to Sheila, directing her words to Oliver. She acknowledged how much he could endure, but emphasized that he needed to take the magical doses now. Oliver agreed, and they then stopped in front of a large water swamp. There, they set up a large boat using Guy's plant tools. Oliver hesitated, telling her that going with them on the boat would be tough, urging her to return to the surface and saying he would continue on his own. Before everyone boarded the boat, Milligan told them there was an essential lesson to learn: how to walk on the lake using the Lanoff technique. She stood on the water, explaining that walking on water requires perfect mastery of all spatial magic elements. Milligan insisted that she knew Sheila and Oliver were aware of that. Oliver replied that he knew but wasn't sure he could do it, mentioning that first-year students were early to learn this. Milligan encouraged them just to try. Nanao rushed into the water, diving in, then resurfaced, exclaiming she never understood the trick. Oliver stepped up and told himself he would cover the water's surface with his magical energy, just like he did using the grave step, splitting his weight across his legs. When he succeeded, Milligan praised him, saying she was sure he'd succeed. This reminded Oliver of when his mother used to do that, telling him he would do it one day since he was her son. He made his way across the water, leaving Nanao in awe. Milligan stated that this technique was the key to unlocking greater power. Oliver then reached out his hand to Nanao and pulled her along, helping her place her feet on the water as well, successfully walking on it with Oliver's assistance. Milligan then asked Sheila if she would stay on land, but Sheila followed them, saying she also succeeded in walking on water. Milligan expressed her confidence that this way, they'd return safely. On the other side, Lynette was lighting some incense and told Cornwallis they could now fly over the swamp without worrying about the skyfish. Cornwallis asked if the incense would last until they crossed to the other side. Lynette shook her head, saying they'd have to stop on a small island to light more incense. She confirmed that the situation was risky but was doing it for Cornwallis. However, they might not be able to land due to magical beasts, so Lynette stated she would have to walk on the lake, assuring Cornwallis that she would carry her like a princess. The two of them mounted their broom and Lynette asked Cornwallis not to fly higher than her. Meanwhile, our heroes continued crossing the swamp by boat. Oliver noticed that Milligan was using a spell to keep the wind gathered around the sail. Milligan then told him there were a few magical beasts, which seemed strange. Suddenly, the beasts started attacking them, prompting Milligan to draw her sword immediately. At that moment, Cyrus appeared, and Milligan greeted him, saying his welcome was exciting. Cyrus asked her what she was doing there, chastising her for bringing 3 students to a deadly place. Milligan explained that Ophelia had kidnapped their friend, and they came to rescue him. Cyrus inquired if she was planning to fight Ophelia, asserting they would perish anyway. He suggested that if that was the case, they might as well perish there and he would benefit from them. Sheila stood up and asked if there was any way they could collaborate with him. Cyrus repeated the word collaboration, and Sheila told him they could provide him with some information on Ophelia's research in exchange for his help in rescuing their friend. Cyrus replied that he didn't care about Ophelia's research. Milligan then asked why he was there, and Cyrus said he came to fulfill a small duty he was committed to, attending Ophelia's funeral. Suddenly, the water shook, and the Chimera appeared. Milligan stated that she suspected Ophelia wouldn't leave this place unguarded, confirming that the Chimera would first attack whoever had high magical energy. Milligan crossed into her boat and entrusted that task to Cyrus, asking him to deal with the Chimera. Cyrus complimented her intelligence, and moments later, Milligan remarked they would have perished if Sheila hadn't intervened. At this point, Nanao asked Oliver what Cyrus had said about Ophelia's funeral. Oliver replied that when magic consumes its sorcerer, someone visits them for their final moments, known as the last visitor. On the other side, Carlos asked Alvin if he thought Ophelia remembered their meeting when they first came to Kimberly. Alvin replied she must remember, as he would never forget that moment. The students spoke about Ophelia, saying she descended from succubus demons and that her scent was irresistible. They began to gossip that she could bear a child for anyone and could give birth to magical beasts. Later, Ophelia sat with Carlos, surprised she hadn't made any friends yet. She told him she could signal any man she wanted, but she didn't need friends. At that moment, Alvin entered, and Carlos asked him to introduce himself to Ophelia. While Alvin spoke to her, he felt her perfume affecting him, so he focused himself with a magic spell, thinking her fragrance was stronger than he had anticipated. For 2 months, Alvin struggled whenever he met Ophelia, managing to keep himself in check only through spells because her scent overwhelmed him. One time, he confronted Ophelia, claiming he had finally overcome her fragrance, extending his hand to her and asking her to stay by his side always. After that, he introduced her to his other companions, Licidi and Tim, informing her they maintained order in the academy and assisted troubled individuals. Ophelia was surprised it was just the 4 of them, to which Carlos replied they were trying to recruit new people, but they left quickly. Tim mentioned 60% of the reasons are due to Licidi. Alvin asked Ophelia if she could help them, and she replied she could make simple potions and utilize basic healing magic. Alvin then asked her if she could heal burns. The scene shifted, and Alvin cast a fire spell. Ophelia asked him anxiously if he was okay, and he informed her that he was told he couldn't use his innate magical energy correctly. Ophelia assured him that no matter how many times he burned, she would always be by his side to heal him. Alvin thanked her, and Ophelia joined the team, beginning to provide assistance. Back in the present, Alvin reflected that he had always rushed things in the past. Carlos told him that regardless, their team grew because of him. Alvin replied that he had failed to protect Ophelia. Carlos confirmed that what happened with Ophelia wasn't his fault, but Alvin insisted he should have taken care of her as her older peer. He then recalled when many students came to join his team and asked Ophelia for help in selecting new members. Eventually, the students cornered Ophelia, accusing her of using her scent to control Alvin. Ophelia tried to explain, but they labeled her a loose woman who only stirred boys. She asked them if they would respect her when she grew strong. They assured her they would. At that moment, Ophelia drew her sword, releasing a tremendous energy that left them all stunned. Later, as Ophelia sat calmly, Licidi asked her how many members she had lured in with her scent. She asked if he himself couldn't resist her as well. Back in reality, in Ophelia's workshop, Pete seized the opportunity and slipped out using the Albright orbs. When Pete finally got out of the workshop, he threw a distress ball, hoping someone would see it and rush to help him. At that same moment, Alvin's companions noticed Pete's signal for help, while Carlos and Alvin hurried on the other side to reach Ophelia's workshop. Gwen and Shannon were also running, hoping they wouldn't run out of time. Meanwhile, Pete was on the verge of losing consciousness, seeing shadows of his friends and feeling himself fall into some strange world. But soon, he snapped back to reality and was surprised to find himself with his friends. Oliver threw himself at Pete, hugging him and praising him for his amazing effort. As Pete tried to grasp what was happening, just when he returned Oliver's embrace, Ophelia suddenly appeared, remarking that it seemed everyone was gathered there. She asked if what they were seeing was a dream or reality and then confronted Pete, revealing that she had discovered his secret of gender inversion. She told him that it seemed she had caught someone with a rare gift. Then, Ophelia turned to Milligan, questioning her about what she was really planning to do with those students. Milligan replied that her kind little classmates wanted to help her save their friend and, as their older classmate, she couldn't refuse their request. Ophelia then pointed out that she had always hated this different side of Milligan, although she didn't differ much from it herself. Milligan raised her finger and told Ophelia that they were indeed similar, which is why she wanted to ask her a favor, to let them leave in exchange for not interfering with what she was doing. Milligan tried to convince Ophelia by saying that releasing just one person like Pete wouldn't hurt her. Ophelia Ophelia widened her eyes and asked Milligan if she thought she was still talking to a human like herself. At that moment, everyone was taken aback. Ophelia told them she had indeed reached the peak of her magic, but she was just looking for the right place to start. Then, Ophelia drew a blade and began chanting spells. Milligan quickly drew her own blade and ordered their heroes to quickly counter Ophelia's spell. In that moment, Oliver and Sheila lunged at Ophelia, trying to stop her. But Ophelia's spell had already begun to take effect, and she surrounded herself with a huge aura of magical energy. Gwen and Shannon saw this from a distance. Gwen noted that Ophelia had indeed begun, while on the other side she continued chanting her spells until everything she desired was completed. Ophelia created a completely isolated world governed only by the laws of the spellcaster, and our heroes became prisoners within this realm. Nonetheless, Milligan expressed admiration for Ophelia's achievement, saying that although there were different ways for a sorcerer to be consumed by their magic, only a few wizards reached the grand stage. Then Milligan closed her eyes, stating that despite Ophelia's youth, she had indeed managed to achieve that. At the same time, Cornwallis and Lynette reached the same place, where Sheila questioned Cornwallis about her presence. Cornwallis explained she had come to rescue Faye. Milligan then suggested that they might now be settling inside Ophelia Salvador's womb. Apparently, Ophelia had rejected the goal of creating the perfect life form and had come to her own conclusion. Milligan continued that it was too late to save them now, and no one could save them unless Ophelia lifted her spell or died. Then Milligan told them that they surely knew what they had to do about it. Sheila replied certainly, and then Milligan approved and ordered them to line up. She requested Lynette to set up a barrier while Oliver informed the others that Milligan and Sheila were the core of their attack, and they would rely on them. Therefore, their mission would be to keep the enemy away from Milligan and Sheila. On the other side, Tim and Lasidi were walking in the third layer, declaring to each other that Ophelia had finally succeeded in isolating herself from the world, and they could no longer see her. Back with Ophelia, Milligan asked her how it felt to be consumed by magic. Ophelia replied that it felt terrible, just as she had expected, but the good part was that she would stay until she watched them all perish. Milligan retorted that she would have much to do before then. Then Milligan provocatively told Ophelia that she wouldn't blame her if her first love was a disaster, knowing that she was more like a swamp snake. Yet, Alvin resembled a unicorn, making it impossible for that love to succeed. Even if it succeeded, all she could achieve would be to steal his sperm. Ophelia then became angry and lashed out at Milligan, ordering Sheila to attack at that moment. Sheila unleashed her magical spell while Milligan revealed the basilisk eye and rushed toward Ophelia, saying that after everything she did, she was still human. The evidence was that her words bothered her greatly, but Ophelia quickly broke out of her petrification and bound Milligan with her blood threads, surprising her that she hadn't been affected by petrification curses in a long time. Milligan told her she was a laughingstock because even though she was about to reach the highest levels of magic, she was still obsessed with the guilt of the past like a sweet virgin. Ophelia remarked that she seemed intent on dying the most miserable way. Then Ophelia recalled her encounter with Alvin, where he asked her about the companions she had kidnapped. Ophelia threw them on the ground before him and Carlos, saying they were no longer suitable to be used as the Chimera's incubators. Alvin told her that the darkness of the cave had infected her heart, drawing his sword and asking her to raise her blade too, because she would pay for what she had done. At that moment, Ophelia told everyone that she regretted nothing. Just then, the Chimera relaxed its attack a bit, and Oliver ordered Nanao to take on Ophelia, while Oliver rushed to ignite the Chimera. Cornwallis flew on her broom to fight the other Chimera, but the Chimera launched its attack on our heroes, causing Oliver to find himself in a gap and nearly fall while flying. Meanwhile, Nanao pierced through Ophelia's aura after taking down everything in her path from the Chimera. Nanao approached Ophelia with her blade, demanding her to prepare for death. But soon, our heroes were startled to see Nanao fall to the ground in front of them. Oliver rushed to her, urging her to hold on. Nanao apologized, explaining that Ophelia was just a child, and she hesitated to raise her sword against a crying girl. Here, Sheila apologized to Pete, saying she had failed to protect him. Pete reassured her that she had come to save him in the end. At that moment, Ophelia broke down in tears, wondering when the last time she had shared her feelings with someone was. Just then, Carlos and Alvin arrived right on time. Suddenly, a hole opened in Ophelia's world, and Alvin and Carlos entered through it. Carlos approached Ophelia, telling her he would give her everything he had. He then unfastened a necklace around his neck and threw it toward Ophelia. Oliver questioned what was happening, and Alvin explained that Carlos and Ophelia had a pact in which Carlos would come to assist. Ophelia should magic consume her. Alvin further stated that Carlos had resistance against all kinds of magical enchantments. As he remembered the promise he made to Ophelia to always make her smile, Carlos moved closer to Ophelia and hugged her, apologizing for not being able to keep that promise. He then confessed that he had always loved her. At that point, Alvin waved goodbye to Carlos, who also said goodbye. Carlos then intertwined his hand with Ophelia's, who begged him never to leave her. The world of Ophelia collapsed, and the atmosphere returned to normal. Oliver met Gwen and Shannon, where Shannon asked him to return to the surface. Gwen informed him that they had come for him. Once they returned to the surface, Katie rushed to hug Pete, and then our heroes raised their swords high once more, creating a sword flower. Life returned to normal in Kimberly. While Katie continued teaching Marco, Guy kept cooking, and Nanao always chased Oliver to learn spells.